Can everybody hear me? All right, we're going to call to order at 6:39. And we begin with roll call. Alvarez is me. Bergman. Uva. Katie Lewin. Drogalo. Oh, Matt Lewin. He's here. Brown. Berg. Here. Caruso. Here. Casal. Chow. Clark. Here. Ignato. Here. Donboy. Here. Conrad. Oh, yeah, she's here. Cormier. Here. Crowley. Here. De La Flor. Here. De La Porta. Here. DeVecas. Electricon. Fiedler. Fowler. Here. Franconi. Here. Ghanem. Oh, she's here. Gopal. Here. Hine. Here. Hines. Hughes. Here. Johnny. Here. Kling. Here. Kugler. Here. Kundu. Surgery. Lavoy. Here. Lim. Here. McNamara. Here. Myers. Here. Ing. Here. Patel. Here. Patron. Here. Perez. Here. Porcello. Here. Puglisi. Rana. Romanev. Ryan. Riff. Sargent. Seeley. Shane. Solomon. Sponzo. Stern. Terpstra. Valverde. Vieira. Lang. All right. All right, next, I'm going to actually, I'm not going to do this by unanimous consent because I know there's going to be objections anyway, so I'm going to essentially motion to approve the agenda that has been presented to you in its current form, and I'm going to just do it as a whole because I'm guessing there are objections to an item that I was going to not make this motion for, but I don't really know how to do that without this. So, to adopt the agenda up on the screen that you have all been shared. So I motion. Is there a second to adopt this agenda? Second by Patron. Are there any questions? Yes. Are there any questions regarding this motion? Yes. Yes, I was originally not going to include this. However, I figured if the Senate has the prerogative to remove it, I'm not going to remove it. And the budget, which I was originally not going to include, but I heard several objections to just not including it at all, so I'm motioning to do all of it. Yes, Senator Swan. My reason, or the reasons that have been brought were, there were questions regarding a particular committee budget. There was also questions regarding the program section and questions regarding if the Senate had properly reviewed it or had time to properly review it and be prepared to ask those questions. That was the original thought process. Are there any other questions regarding this motion? Is there any debate regarding this motion? Senator Ignato.
In our previous Senate, senators were asked to have trust in approving an unfortunately vague and unfortunately exaggerated preliminary budget after we were given some 15 minutes to review it. And today we're expected to vote on an almost equally vague, exaggerated budget, and today with less than 6 hours to review before Senate. Talking about the budget specifically as it was proposed, Comptroller Rana was right to try and safely budget USG's funds so they're never overdrawn. But the amount of leeway that the proposals as shown as we were emailed today, or in the budget lays out, gives USG almost the equivalent of a blank check to spend student fees. Why are we budgeting $7,000 for a banquet when we've already agreed to pay $20 a head out of pocket? Why are we budgeting $8,000?
Technically, sorry, you're out of order in the sense that that is specific items to the budget itself. The motion at hand or the question at hand is whether or not to adopt the budget. So debate must be limited to should we or should we not adopt these items to our agenda. And if it is adopted, then those questions come later. Or come.
If we adopt this legislation, like
Agenda.
agenda as it is, if we see the budget, if we adopt it as it is, and we see the budget, we have issues with it. If we don't approve the budget,
If you were to not approve the budget, so basically this is the process that's at hand. So right now, all you are voting on is to adopt items, an act concerning funding for UC Thunderhouse, an act concerning UConn College Republicans, an act concerning monthly meetings of regional campuses, and an act concerning the budget of the undergraduate student government. If you vote aye, just regarding the adopted agenda, then all of those things will be put onto the agenda. What I believe Bennett's raising issue with is the specific act concerning the budget. And so he would have to split the question, he would have to motion to split the question and remove the budget and vote on adopting the budget to the agenda separately. So what I'm saying is that, and so if we were to adopt the budget and the budget would go on the agenda, then it would be an item just like any other and we could vote it down. If it were voted down, then it will come up again and the budget will have to be changed.
Well, bylaw number 15, section 2 lays out that the Senate has to enact a finalized budget for the semester by the third Senate meeting. So I recommend that we don't do it today, and I move to split the question and vote on adding the budget to the agenda separately.
Okay. Is there a second to this motion? Seconded by Bergman. Are there any questions regarding the motion? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding the motion? Comptroller Ramos.
Okay, so the motion to split and vote on it on its own, right? And then you're going to vote on whether or not it should be part of the agenda or not. Why I'm saying that we should just drop this is because, just point of personal privilege, how long do we have this room for?
We have it till typically 11.
Okay, so we have this room till 11 o'clock, which means that you are bound by whatever it is, by your rule, by senator, by what we are. If we have to go till 11, that's fine. I think that should happen if it needs to be. Putting this on the agenda is important because we need to get our proposed budget done. It's an updated budget, and I think it needs to be put onto the agenda because we need to get it done. I understand that we can do it by the third Senate, but one of the problems that we foresaw was that there are committee members, there are committees that need to start spending their money above the amounts that they may have had budgeted in the preliminary budget. So I think we should not pass the motion to split the question, if I got that right, and then just vote on it as a whole.
Are there any other people who would like to be recognized for debate? Then respond to. My microphone loud enough?
I'd just like to say I think that it's actually a good idea to talk about it today because we have Parth here right now, so we can review it. Like he said, we have a lot of time, so if we need to, we can just look at it now, ask him any questions we need to, which is a lot more efficient than us sitting at home looking at our computer and saying, I wonder why that number is that. When we have him here, we can just ask him right now if we need to. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, Senator Byrd and, wait, pause, sorry. Sit back down. It's Senator Vieira first. Yep, I mean, upright your chair first, and then sit, I guess. Sorry.
I think we should split and vote not to review the budget today, just because I understand that we can sit here and ask hard questions, but I think we can do that next Senate after we review the budget and really formulated those questions. It's kind of hard on the spot, especially since there's a lot of last minute legislation that we
Yes.
Not you, I'm sorry,
Okay.
not to interrupt you, I just didn't.
Especially since there's a lot of other pieces of legislation tonight that were also kind of last minute that we still need to review, it's kind of hard to look at all of those in detail, including the budget in detail. Formulate the questions we want to ask tonight and hash that out. I don't have a problem staying here until 11. I think even if we look at the budget next week, we might still have to stay, or next Senate, we might still have to stay until 11, but I don't think it's fair to look at it tonight.
All right, next, Senator Burke.
Alright, I'm in favor of splitting the question. I just wanted to let you know that we have caucus next week where there's no parliamentary procedure getting in the way of discussing the budget, which is probably a much more efficient way to discuss the budget rather than having to get up and take turns speaking and who's out of order and all that BS, so.
Actually, just a note to everyone. Based on other legislation, ironically, we are going to be, or I'm going to be calling a special Senate for next meeting or for our next caucus, which is going to be essentially brief, but we will have a caucus where we could have free discussion and simultaneously then subsequently have a fully Senate. Just so everyone's aware. Next on the speakers list is, Senator, or Chairperson Lynn.
Evening, everyone. I urge the Senate to split this question because between now and our next vote, the committees will meet. If you have problems with the committee budgets, I urge you to go to these specific committee meetings. Don't just ask for a meeting with one of the executive committee members, the meeting comptroller. Approach the chairperson, talk one-on-one, see where you can address your concerns. I understand the urgency to vote on this as soon as possible, but I also believe in talking face-to-face personally and not having someone be roasted on this podium tonight. So that's all I have to say, and I really urge you guys to consider this well and to put off the vote for the committee budget.
All right, next, Chairperson Conley.
It's basically a combination of the past previous votes.
Okay. Is there?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, can I call a previous question, actually?
If you come up here and come to the floor. Wait, is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate even? Okay, so then she still has the floor then because Justin wants to speak. So if you'd like to call the previous question so Justin couldn't speak. Okay. Chairperson Clark is recognized.
I'm Chief of Staff.
Chief of Staff, I'm sorry. Sorry, what was that rule?
I actually think we should just vote on it tonight. I don't think that the issues with it are going to take that long to kind of clarify. It's just a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. It's not, neurosurgery. You can, if they put it up there, you can look at it. I imagine it's been emailed to you. Yes. It's been emailed to you. You all have cell phones and laptops. We have this room until 11. I really don't see any reason why we can't go because a lot of these things are important, time-sensitive issues that we need to approve the budget for so that we know how much money we have to spend on things. And waiting another week or two is not helping us at all. Everything in USG is last minute, and if we do this now, we can stay on track. So that's my opinion.
I have a point of privilege. What is the actual number of hours that legislation is supposed to be sent to us before we vote on it?
The legislation is supposed to be sent to you 48 hours beforehand. Yeah. Yes.
So we only had about 6 hours to review this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I woke up at 5:30 today. I went to what I do for work all day, and then I came here and I got on a bus, and I literally not had a time to check my email or text messages since that time. So I don't think it's fair that I am being asked to vote on something that I have not had time to look at. And we're not supposed to have our personal technologies out in Senate. So unless we're going to call a giant recess that we can all look at this and then come back and talk about it, we shouldn't vote on it because it's just not the rules.
So, Comptroller Rana?
open up the can of worms on parliamentary procedure and how USG is supposed to operate. We should keep that for another 5-hour, 6-hour debate for something completely different. Keep that aside. The reason it needs to be done today is because we're all here. One thing we stress as an organization is transparency, right? So that all of this debate that we talk about the budget, every question, every inquiry, everything I say, everything any committee member says is going to be recorded in the minutes tonight, correct? Next week, they won't be, because it's an informal caucus. Cool. So then we just directly go against our striving to be, our priority to be transparent. One thing that we came up here saying our budget needs to get done more thoroughly to be more transparent. So why is this not the perfect setting to do so within our Senate, within the time frame that we have to do so? I know for a fact that we have had other legislation sent to us last minute. I feel really wrong about this, but if we want to go by that same prerogative, our Senate should be done today after finishing reports and after finishing discussion and after finishing announcements. It should be done. No legislation for any of these student organizations was sent in on time either. If we want to go by parliamentary procedure, then nothing should be done today. So think that to yourself if you want to go specifically towards just one act of legislation, or you want to go towards everything. Because I'm pretty sure that monthly meeting stuff wasn't sent to you on time. I'm pretty sure that act for UC Thunderous wasn't sent on time. I'm pretty sure that the act for CPAC for college Republicans wasn't sent on time. I'm pretty sure none of the legislation was sent on time. We're sorry. We're all people. We all have things going on in our life. I understand that an individual had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. this week, but I understand that there are committee members, there are executive members who get less than 4 hours of sleep every night because they're still in the office 3, 4, 5 a.m. doing things like, the budget. So, again, I stress to you that we at least look into it today. You have the option, again, for someone to come up here during debate when we're looking at an act concerning the budget of spring 2015 for the undergraduate student government to motion to lay table to our next Senate. But I still stress that you come and ask those questions, get everything off your mind now, so that even if you don't think it should be done, fine. Bring that up in debate and motion to lay table. But to do it right now is a cop-out. And it's lazy, and that's not what a senator is. That's not what an executive member is. That's not what the undergraduate student government is. I don't care if this is personal or anything or not, but I find it very disrespectful to yourselves that you just want to get in here, pass these legislations for these student organizations, listen to us ramble on about what we've done for the past 2 weeks, and get out. We have this room from 6:30 to 11. I understand that we don't want to stay here till 11. But we want to use every minute efficiently, and we want to get things done on time, and we want to get them done efficiently. And understand that one of those factors we didn't get done. We didn't get it done on time. But we can still get it done efficiently, because we have that power. Because we are smart individuals elected by the student body. So that when you get something 6 hours in advance only, I expect, maybe not everyone else, but I expect you guys are competent and smart enough that you can look at a spreadsheet with some numbers, see what's being spent, and then formulate some questions. Because you guys have classes like biochem and accounting and things like this where you have 2-hour exams. And you might not have cramped and you might not have studied for them or anything. But you might have new concepts on there that you have to understand right there, and then you have to apply them. This isn't that hard. These are numbers, and if I'm the professor, I'm here giving you the answers. Very simple. If you want to split the question, sure, vote on it. But it should be done today. And if it's not done today, table it. But don't just avoid it completely today. Because that's just a waste of time. That's a waste of our time. Like, you guys all get dressed up for what? I get dressed up for what? Just so that we can take some pretty pictures, get out of here, hear us talk for a few minutes? No. We're here to do work. You're here to be the undergraduate student government. You're here to advocate. You're here to do stuff. And that means putting that on the agenda and doing it today. And if not doing it today, at least trying to do it today. And if you can't do it today, if you can't even try to do it today, that's the cop-out. Try to do it today. If you can't, then motion to lay table. You have that option later on, but don't do it right now. Don't get rid of it right now. This is lazy. Like, come on. What is this?
All right. So, because this is taking way too long, I'm limiting the rest of the debate to 5 minutes. Every person gets 45 seconds at maximum. Next is Vice President, our Vice President, Romanov. It's always difficult to say. There's alliteration involved.
I just would like to point out to you guys that a lot of other big student organizations or tier 3s, the way they do their budget, a lot of times is they'll meet together as a group and literally they'll go line by line, ask questions. The person who who like requested that line amount will explain what it's for, they like hash it out. And I think that's a really good strategy to do it, and I understand that maybe you don't feel prepared right now or whatever, but I think it's worth a try just to look it over at least. And if you're like, this is way, like, we need to discuss this, because honestly, how many of you are going to take your own time and sit there and look at this budget and be like, I wonder what that's used for, like, in between your classes and stuff. So this might be a good time to hear other people's questions and whatnot, so at least give it a try, and then if you really feel like you can't, then table it, because that's your right.
She actually kept it to her time limit. Good work. All right, next, Senator Vieira.
I think it's completely ridiculous to put the blame on the Senate as a body to not want to review something today when we haven't had adequate time to formulate our questions, to really think things through. If we want to call that lazy, I completely disagree. It's the opposite of lazy, because we want to actually take the time to go through this line by line, see if we agree or not, and ask our questions at a later time. This has nothing to do with transparency. This has nothing to do with laziness or disrespectfulness. This is senators wanting to understand what they're voting on, and I think that's exactly what USG is supposed to be about. That's exactly what we've been talking about. If we want to be transparent, how can we do that when we don't even know the content of what we're passing here in the Senate? I think it's absolutely ridiculous to.
Next, Senator Bergman. Okay, next, Senator Berg.
First of all, I'd like to make a comment that two members of exec just called all of us in this room that aren't at this table lazy. Two of them. And I think that's completely abhorrent. And who's going to take the time between our classes to look at this budget? Well, that's our job. So I hope all of you are doing that. I know I was doing that in the little time I had with Stephen, and etc. And I guess we're all rude as well, but I don't know if you guys heard the tone of Parth's voice in that speech. It was, frankly, it really upset me that a member of USG could talk to other members of USG like that. But please just, let's talk about this caucus where parliamentary procedure won't get in the way of the discussion. Thanks.
All right, next, thank you for staying in your time. Next, Will Cormier. Senator Cormier, sorry.
Answering the need expressed that we need time to review this legislation, I move that we recess until 7:15 to give us time to take out our laptops or phones and look at the budget ourselves on our own time.
So, Senator Cormier is motioning to recess until 7:15. True, but the motion doesn't, hold on, let me check some stuff. Because this is weird. Yeah, no, it's not a motion. So, okay. So, honestly, I'm not going to recognize the motion. If later on, if the budget is adopted, then later on I will recess by unanimous consent. However, I'm not going to recognize that motion right now because we have been taking too much time on this and we should just vote up or down, I believe, once everybody has had their chance to speak. So I'm not recognizing the motion. And we're moving to Eliza, who is last on the speaker's list. Unless anybody else.
Okay guys, this is a lot right now and everyone needs to calm down. Up here, I'm seeing faces on both sides of the table. People are making at each other, and that's not okay. That doesn't help anything. And I know it's frustrating, but please, guys, we're all a family. Don't do this. It's not like, don't make faces and don't be negative when people are talking up here. It's not always easy. But guys, like, this is a budget, and if people don't understand and people didn't have time, I'm gonna put it up on the screen, and we can ask as many questions as we want. If you have questions, this is when we do it. Take out your laptops now. I don't give a crap. Just look at it, figure it out. It's just, this is something that needs to get done. And it's respectful to everyone who put legislation forward tonight to look at all of it. Because it's not always easy to get things on time, but it almost never happens on time, you guys. Don't just single us out because people have issues with it.
Okay, next, Programs Director Matthews.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to echo the same statement that parliamentarian Conrad just urged. I mean, this is a perfect time to ask questions. If we have not had time to look at it, then she'll bring it up, we can look at it, we can recess, and ask questions on the record. I mean, that's what the important thing is here. Is asking questions on the record where you know you're getting straight answers, and that's also recorded, and Daily Campus can do whatever with that. It's on the record, and everyone knows. There's no mystery to what's going on. It's not being done in a smoke-filled room. I mean, I think we should take the extra time, go the extra mile, and just seriously look at it now. I mean, as opposed to putting it off to when.
John, sorry, I was less gentle with you. I don't know why. But so, okay, it is Rachel is the last person on the list.
Alright, so I'm gonna start talking. I think we've heard both sides right now, and I respect your decisions as senators if you think you have adequate time to look at it now. I also respect you if you say, you know what, I want to take more time to look at this because you didn't have your 48 hours. This was not done in time. No one's blaming anyone right now, either side you vote. But I think you guys, I respect you, I respect your time, I respect how you value your time. You know if you want to do it tonight on the record or not. Guess what, caucus, we're all together again, it's not on the record. But next Senate, we're going to be same people, same room, some people, same ties. So I want you to think about what you want as a senator, and I respect your decision, and exactly respect your decision whenever you vote, and I'm calling to hear this question.
Yay. Since she was the last person to speak, and it's reached our time limit, debate's over. So ordered, because I can actually do that. Check the rules. So we are moving directly into a vote on this. So, just so that no one is confused, you are voting on splitting the question. On which splitting the question means, if you're confused by that, Senator Cognado has motioned to remove the item, or to vote on separately the item, an act concerning the budget. So that would be voted on separately from what the motion is right now. So, if you vote no, then the question will not be split, and then you will go into a vote on the whole agenda. If you vote yes, then the question will be split. Everybody understand? Are there any questions? Yes, Senator. Yes. If the question is split, essentially the budget will be removed from what we go in straight into a vote on, which will be the adoption of the whole agenda as it is. And then we will subsequently vote on whether or not to adopt the budget to the agenda. This is just putting it on the piece of paper that is our agenda for the evening for consideration. Everybody good? Okay, next. We'll just go straight to the vote. All those in favor of splitting the question and separating the budget out, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Okay, division. So, all those in favor of splitting the question, please rise. And I'm standing up to count them. I'm not standing up because I am abstaining. Okay. Okay. 9-4. You may sit. All opposed, please rise. Really fast. I'm not counting you because that's more than 9. Anybody want a challenge? Okay. All right, so the motion has failed, and so we return to debate on the motion to adopt the agenda, including all 4 items that have been added. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of adopting this agenda for this meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. All right, now we can actually have some stuff done. First, actually, yes. No, because you do not have the floor and we just voted. What is? You can change that just by right. Okay, that's fine. So, now we move into public comment. Is there anybody who would like to come up here? And she'll change it right now. And by unanimous consent? Okay, good. All right, now we move into public comment. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for public comment? Seeing none, we move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from January 28th? Motion by Lavoy, second by Perez. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none, is there? Oh, sorry. Yes. The minutes were shared with everybody. And everybody gets an email notification when I share things with you. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Seeing none. I'll get you. Is there any debate? Yes. Senator Rifkin.
I'm just wondering, this is a question, I'm sorry, I missed it before.
By unanimous consent, can we return to the question period? And please come up here, I guess. All right.
Hi everyone. I was nominated and approved last week. I don't believe I have been added to the list for last week or this week in terms of attendance, so I guess by unanimous consent, we add me on there and add me to all future attendance lists.
By unanimous consent, actually I can just decide that, yes. So,
I'll take the placard too if you.
all right. All right, so, next. Just thrown off right now. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 28th, 2015, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Clearly passes. Wonderful. Now, we move into an act concerning funding for UC Thunderos. Are there 2 sponsoring senators? Senator Patel, Senator Brocco. You are recognized. Sorry, we're trying to find it. Yeah, I did. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I just thought I didn't send something and I would have looked like an idiot when I sent it, so we're good. Okay, yeah. Sorry. So, now, oh yeah, you have the floor.
An act concerning emergency funding for UC Thunderos. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with improving experience of the student body through the funding of the undergraduate student initiatives. Whereas UC Thunderos has requested funding for the initiative to Ross Royalty, a prestigious dance competition held annually at Indiana University. Whereas the above-mentioned initiative has a high likelihood of success and bears clear merit to the student body. Whereas UC Thunderos has already received a total of $7,084.50 for airfare, lodging, and registration fees from Ross Royalty. Whereas, after talking with the Ross Royalty Executive Board, UC Thunderos was advised to use a preferred shuttle service as the Executive Board would be unable to pick up a team from the airport. Whereas, this is an unforeseen expenditure that their organization did not anticipate and has made all efforts to reduce its cost. Whereas, UC Thunderos is requesting $684 towards a shuttle service to take them to and from Bloomington. Whereas, the following request is subject to the 25% cut pursuant of its Category D status. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government allocate $513 to the above-mentioned initiative of UC Thunderos.
I'll give the motion to Broccolo and a second to Patel. Are there any questions regarding the legislation? Is there any, seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this legislation? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning funding for UC Thunderos, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. All right. Next, we move into an act concerning funding for Yukon College Republicans. Do we have two sponsoring senators? Senator, or Deputy Speaker Magnabo and Senator Brockwood.
An act concerning funding for the Yukon College Republicans. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with improving the quality of student initiatives through funding, whereas the Yukon College Republicans is requesting funds to attend the 2015 CPAC conference in Washington, D.C., whereas the undergraduate student government has funded this event in the past, whereas this event holds direct merit to students in the form of practical trainings, educational panels, and esteemed speakers. Whereas it is the purpose to support as many students as possible in pursuing their passions during their time at the University of Connecticut, and is open to any member of the student body. Whereas there are 27 members expected to attend the event, incurring a cost of $70 per person, totaling at $1,890. Whereas funding policy stipulates a 75% cap on all Category E funding, totaling $1,417.50. Whereas the Yukon College Republicans were previously funded $315 for this trip and has agreed to rescind that funding following the passage of this bill. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government allocates $1,417.50 for the Yukon College Republican CPAC trip.
So I'm going to give the motion to McNabo and the second to Brockwood. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
It's up to $70.
Okay. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for questions? First, Senator Byrd, then Senator Bergman.
Did Funding Board approve this piece of legislation?
Funding Board recommended that the original $315 be dispersed to the group.
Did the Funding Board approve this piece of legislation as it stands?
The Funding Board does not have approval power over legislation.
No,
the Funding Board has recommendations.
Did they recommend that we pass?
That question has been asked and answered.
Yeah, the fund.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, so your question is, did they approve it? No, because as Kevin said, they can't necessarily approve the legislation. However, they did recommend the $315.
I guess you're still not answering our question. Can I ask the Funding Board a question?
Hold on, let me just try one more time to try and answer your question. So your Funding Board's recommendation.
I know the answer. I'm trying to make the Senate aware that this doesn't fit the funding policies.
Then you may do that in debate.
No, I'm trying to do it in question form.
I realize what you're trying to do. I understand. However, if you are not actually asking a question.
I'm going to ask you a question. Does this fit the funding policies?
Based on the funding policies and what the Funding Board makes their requests or their recommendations to the Senate on, there's an 8-person maximum for trips in Category E funding. However, it also, in my knowledge, is the Senate's prerogative to pass legislative funding despite that recommendation.
Which we've done before.
Yes.
All right. Next, we go to Senator Bergman.
I know for most funding groups, for most groups that we fund, we cap at 8 people to go on these trips, and I know it says 27 up there. Is the difference in those two amounts due to funding more of these members to go? I'm just wondering where.
As far as I understand it, the 27 members, this amount of money they're requesting is to cover the 27 members.
Okay, and then for that, are all those 27 members being capped at 75%, or are we just full? Are they asking for full funding for this trip?
It's 75%.
Yeah.
Next, Senator LaVoy.
We have a question may have been answered already, but has this ever been done before where the Senate goes back and gives more funding for 2 years?
We went against the recommendation last year. I think it was like an honest group. Yeah,
We used
We did it with my group last year, UC Thunderous, where it's in the 8-town showdown, which is a competition, and then we got funded for something. So yeah, people can rescind something and then they do it in, like turn it around for something else.
We also did it with an honors group, which is a huge amount.
Honest quote, I can interject. We, for the first, when funding policies or when legislative requests first came out, we actually rather frequently did do things like this. So it's based on the Senate prerogative and the nature of the Senate at that time, just so everyone's aware. Next is Senator Sponzo.
How many people in this room are going to be attending this trip supposedly?
In this room, I actually don't know the exact number.
Could you just like raise your hand? For
Yeah,
people who are,
or
people who are in.
just as a point about your question, they won't be participating in debate, and they'll be abstaining from all.
No, yeah, no, I understand. I'm just wondering, could we have like a raise of hands of like people who are in called Republicans or? I mean, I can't. Can I ask people who know? Can I yield to someone who knows? Or can you yield to someone who knows?
It essentially is allowed. I guess she's asking a question that's a broader question that's not directed at these. But
Yeah, can you yield to someone?
I'm
who
gonna yield
knows
to
the
Parth.
answer?
Yeah. So I mean, having members in our USG Senate or in USG part of other organizations has never been an issue. The comptroller of your undergraduate student government, the funding board chair, is sponsoring, and then another one of the senators in this chamber are all members of UC Thunderous.
No, yeah, no, I understand. I'm not asking to prove any point. I just want to know the answer.
No, they raise hands. You have like.
No, I'm asking how many people in this room are going
Okay.
The question.
No, hold on. Not you. I'm not mad. Everybody else, stop doing whatever it is that everybody in this room seems to be doing right now. So, she has a right to ask that. They may yield and essentially allow that question. However, the question is being asked regarding the motion being made. And it is a fair question or a reasonable question that is allowed to be asked. Whether or not it is relevant is not up for us to decide or for me to rule out of order. Just so that's clear. So, anybody who would like to raise your hand, you have no obligation to do it, but anybody going on this trip may answer her question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Next, Senator Ng.
Alright, so I went on the good old internet and looked up the funding policies. And under section 5.2, it talks about the 8 participant maximum. And then it says, except for the nature of the activity requires a greater number. So I'm just curious to the members that are going, or you guys, if you could answer this, is it necessary for more than 8 people to go?
Well, the thing with the group is, they opened it to the entire student body. The college Republicans actually went out and emailed as many groups as they could to try and get as many people to come as possible. As going along with the funding board policies, Stevens told me that usually that's for sporting events. However, the way I see it is that because of the nature of this event, because there will be event workshops and things like that, where they'll actually be physically participating, the more people, the more beneficial it is to the student body.
Thank you. All right, next Chairperson Condor.
You might not know this, but I was just wondering, so I know we've had other legislations go up where groups have done 8 members going to conferences, and this might be more of a question for Rashida or Stephen. How many groups would you say if you know off the top of your head, apply for conferences and are cut to 8 people, which in conferences usually are workshops, or similar to this conference, I would say?
We refer to her. Yeah. Board chair.
Any group that requests funding that in which the necessity is not there, they're not
is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for questions? Senator DeVoy. All right, seeing none, we move into debate. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? I will allow it. I'll allow it because it'll be debate based, so I'll let you keep the floor. But next will be Johnny Caruso.
No, I just want to remind everybody that the funding board can give Senate recommendation, but it is ultimately the Senate's prerogative to decide how much to fund a group. So just keep that in mind when we're discussing this. It is our job to figure out if this is necessary, if we want to do this, if the group deserves it, if the 27 should stay. It's our prerogative. Just want to remind everybody of that.
Great, let's take a second. I'm having a lot of those questions today. So is the 8-person cap part of a recommendation, or is it part of a funding policy? Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Chairperson John.
I understand that it's Senate's prerogative, so I'm here giving funding board's recommendation as well, based on the e-vote that we sent out today, okay? So the 8 people cap is applied to any group that applies to go to an event on campus, right? 8-person, it's in our policies. That's why we do the 8-person cap. If the event is such that they're participating, so that includes sports teams, you know? Sports teams need sometimes more than 8 people. If it's something like an engineering group that's going to an engineering competition, that is another basis for the exception to the 8%. When I spoke to the CFO and when I researched more into this event, there are lectures, there are a series of speakers, there are things that you learn from. Yes, it's an educational event, but there is no necessity for more than 8 people to go. Right now, 8 people have been funded in the funding system, $315 for hotels for them to go, based on what we reviewed this
Well,
packet.
it's registration fees, isn't it?
Additional disbursement, what we were given as funding for.
Gotcha.
They had requested hotels, so we gave them $315, right? So funding board is saying that that college Republicans should receive no more than $315 for this event because there's no necessity for there to be more than 8 people, and we would like to stay consistent in the way that we fund groups, because that is where a lot of the problems lie, where a lot of the groups come in and say, well, this group did this, why can't we have that exception? So for consistency purposes, based on our policies, funding board recommends no more than $315, which is 75% of 8 people going to the hotel rooms originally requested, and the disbursement be funded to this group.
Next, Senator Byrd.
Okay, a couple points. First one would be, I know not all of you were here last year, but we did talk about this last year about the precedent of funding things outside of the funding policies. I fully understand that it's Senate's prerogative to do so, but just think about this situation, how easy it would be to request money for more than 8 people for a group. All it takes is 2 sponsoring senators, an excuse for why it didn't go through the funding process normally, and for Senate to approve it. If we continue down this road, we could just, I don't imagine it would be exorbitant, but it could. We could have groups coming to Senate often asking for more than 8 people to go places. Another point is my understanding that all 27 members that are planning to go will still go if we only fund them 8. So I don't want you to think that you're denying people the right or the ability to go. I don't want to speak on financial means. I just heard that from some members that the plan is to still send as many people, not to cut it out at 8 and then only send 8 people if we only fund it at 8 people. So just keep that in mind.
All right, next, Senator Caruso.
Hey guys, sorry it's a little rough to listen to. I've been sick, so I kind of sound a little manly, but I'm going to try and make this as clear as possible. So going back to what Rashida said, I think we should really look at the priority in which it is to send these members. And as like Senator Byrd touched upon, it's not as if we're denying people the ability to go to this conference. However, as again Rashida touched upon, it's not as if it's an economics team in which, you know, you need all these people for a competition. I think we should look more of it as almost a privilege for these people to go. And again, it's not as if we're denying them the ability to go, but, and I know this isn't the exact same situation, but if we look at even for us going to COSGA, I know it's not the same situation because we're only limited to a certain amount of people, but we should look at it almost, actually I don't even know where I was going with that. Sorry. A little nerve-wracking first time speaking, but main point is we should look at the priority, because I know that Connor and Jake, you know, they mentioned that there would be benefits for these people going, but do these benefits really outweigh whatever funding that we have to add or whatever rules we have to break in order to add people? So I just thought we should consider that. I'm sorry, this was so horrible, but.
All right, next, Senator Porcello.
Part of my job as Vice Chair of Funding Board is to send out the emails to group CFOs saying what we funded them once we've finished reviewing the disbursements. And I just finished up the December 19th, like a week ago, which the original CR disbursement was a part of. And this comes up a lot. A lot of groups get capped at 8 members. And it would be fairly hypocritical of us as an organization to fund this one group past 8 while so many other groups get cut to 8 members. I don't know how I would feel if I was a CFO, and I read this in the Daily Canvas tomorrow that one group got seemingly special treatment, or I don't mean to use those words, but got the legislation passed in favor of them. It just seems overall hypocritical. I would hope that we would just stay consistent with the funding policies, and that's it.
Next is Senator DeBeckis.
No, that was me asking a question. That
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Next, Senator McNamara.
Okay, so I actually realized as more and more people went up to speak against it, I had more and more points on my list that I wanted to respond to. So I'm sorry. Maybe it would have been better strategy to let me go up first and say a couple of things. Anyway, so I actually completely agree with Stephen in the fact that it sucks to have to cut groups at 8 members. And I hope in the future we can change that policy. But us as the Senate right now, we have the power to say, we want to fund this group. This trip shows clear merit to the student body. We took an oath as senators when we came into this office to say, we will uphold our constituents' wishes. My constituent, one of them, here, Paul Silva, is a member of College Republicans. My constituents came in and asked me to support this legislation. So I'm here telling you that this bill doesn't just break rules. Listen, we can't look at it from that aspect. We have to look at it from the lens of how is it going to help the student body? What is our role as USG? Our role as USG is to go out and advocate for students. This is my way of advocating for students. If we say no to this group, not only will many members of the organization not be able to attend the trip, despite what Senator Byrd may have said about the financials of the situation. I have spoken to many of the members, and I know that personally, many of them would not be able to go to Washington, D.C. to participate in this amazing opportunity for them. Also, right now, USG is looking at a $400,000 surplus. That's a ton of money. And I'm sorry, but if we're going to abide so strictly by the funding policy rules, which I think, for the most part, are effective, and there's parts of them which are ineffective. So I'm pleading to you to say that we need to, as a body, as a legislative body, override that recommendation. As far as denying the privilege to the students, again, many of them will still be able to go on the trip, despite, or will not, I'm sorry, my bad. will not be able to go on the trip if we turn this down. Now, let me just finish up with one last thing, going back to what she's one. I'm sorry, I'm bouncing all over the place. Like I said, I got a lot of points up here, and like I was writing them out really quickly. Anyway, so Rashida said it goes against the consistency of the funding board to fund this group and not fund other groups. Funding boards made their recommendation. Funding board's consistency is still upheld. They said don't fund them. It's documented. It's in the minutes. Don't fund the group is what funding board has said. But the Senate, it's our prerogative. It's our ability. We have the power to still fund this group. We have the power to still say we are going to support our constituents' wishes. We are going to send them on this trip, which will help the student body. And that is our mission in USG, is to fund groups, is to advocate for them. Thank you.
Next, Chairperson Condon.
So I'm going to take you guys on a little time travel trip to my very first Senate, 2014. No, this is actually relevant. My very first debate was with Senator Alvarez on Honors Council requesting more money than is in the policy. That's correct, right? And that's why it's going to be a fun time. I completely agree we should fund groups more. I completely agree I don't like this rule. But I also think we should go through changing that. But I agree to the point that it's your prerogative as a Senate. If you agree with the points Connor made, which are all valid, vote it up. But I think you should also look at, maybe we need to do a policy change and we shouldn't give a group that knew how to go through legislative funding, because this is an intimidating thing. Even for people who come up here and speak, it's intimidating to have to come up here and do it. And I think it's great that we offer this to groups. But we also have to look at all the groups who are scared to go through this process, who I've talked to scared to go through this process. Time travel trip number 2, spring 2014. History Club. Dan remembers this. We debated this one. History Club. 8 members were limited to going to this trip, and they made it work. And I worked with them on the finances, and it sucked because they have way more than 8 members. And I talked to them about this rule. I've also talked to other clubs where I've helped them with legislation. In this Senate, well, not you, but this room of other people, some repeated, voted to not give them more than 8 members. So even in this room, we can give random groups money all we want. We don't have to follow anything because it really is your prerogative and it's absolutely the truth. And once again, I'm going to say it comes down to what you want to vote for. You can vote this up and you're not breaking any rules. But you can also vote this down and you're still not breaking any rules, and you can still say that policy's dumb, I want to change it. And that's just an issue. I think even when me and Kevin debated, it was split. It was like the closest vote I've seen yet. So this is a hard question. You just need to look at yourself and answer because there are valid points on each side. But just things to think about. Thank you.
Parliamentarian Conrad. Sorry whenever I hesitate, I'm trying to remember people's titles.
Okay. I remember being a scared little freshman. I know I talk a lot now, but I didn't talk a lot first half last year. And sitting here and I was like, oh my god, this is a crazy beat, just like Rachel just said, for both those issues. And something that maybe this isn't the time to kind of think about that and try to rehash an entire policy. That's something, if someone wants to take the initiative to go change policy, do it. We'll all love you for it. Because obviously it's an issue we have. But given that it is a policy right now, and given that not every single club is going to have the courage to come up here and ask us for it, it's kind of a respect thing. Just like we're trying to abide by our own rules, was something we talked about earlier tonight. We should respect our own rules for something else. So, not everyone that applied to COSTA gets to go. Only 8 people get to go, and it sucks. A lot of people want to go. I don't get to go. But you know what? 8 amazing people are going to go, and they're going to tell us what they learned. And so, if 8 more of us want to fund our own trip, I'm sure we could just do it. I don't really know how that works. But you know what? That's just kind of the way it is for History Club. 8 people got to go for everything that Rashida and Steven and all of funding board funded this past semester. A lot of people had to say, guys, only 8 people get to go. It sucks, but it's just the way it is right now. So why should one club, whether it be USG people that we send everyone to COSCA, or it be this club that sends everyone to CPAC, why is it any different?
Next, Chairperson Kubo.
consistency, and a lot of people have brought up consistency of the funding policies. We are consistent today. Everyone has the same process. Doesn't matter if you're timid or outgoing or want to get up and approach your senators about it or not. Everybody has the same process. If you disagree with the funding policies and you believe that your organization deserves funds to go on a trip that's going to clearly benefit the student body as a whole, your organization, and the students that will go on that trip, you can go to your senators and ask them to sponsor legislation and say, hey, this is going to provide clear merit for the student body. So we're staying consistent today. You don't have to break any rules. The funding board has given its recommendations. If you believe that this is going to provide merit for the student body, then vote for it. If you don't, for that or other reasons, because you want to stay within the funding board's recommendations, then don't do it. But consistency, every single group that gets denied funding for something or gets cut off at 8 can come and bring their bill before Senate. And that's where we're consistent. But in terms of fairness and consistency, we're staying consistent tonight. The fees that we're spending today, I just want to remind everybody that the fees that we're trying to allocate today is, first of all, a small part of the surplus, but also were given to us by the students. The fees that we get are from student fees. It's the students' money given to us to allocate. So if we want to give a little bit more of that money back to the students this year, $1,800 and whatever it is, somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000. If we want to give a little bit more of that money back to the students this year so that they can go and have a experience that helps to fulfill their college careers, I don't know why we're splitting hairs over it.
No, not you. Sorry, I was offending you.
Let's fund a group if it's going to help out the student body. We are staying consistent. If other groups want to come, I encourage every senator here to go out and reach out to their constituents and say, if you have an issue with our funding policies, come talk to your senator. If you really feel that it's going to provide clear merit to your organization, to the student body as a whole, come talk to your senator. We'll put it before the Senate for a vote. We have the final say on what we fund. Let's do it for the students.
I'm just wondering, when groups go through the normal funding process, where the parents only have 8 people go to this, are they explicitly told that they can go through this legislative process to get the funding from one people?
Yep.
Yes,
Usually if they have an issue, they'll appeal it to national and that way can be resolved, or if they end up not getting money and they ask me what they can do, I literally sit down and go to the USG website and show them here are where you can find the senators, email them, and they'll walk through the process as well as I explain it.
Thank you.
Next, Senator LaVoy.
I come up here very torn today because both as a member of Funding Board and as a member of Senate, I have 2 different opinions from both sides. As a member of Funding Board, I understand that the process is to only cut it at 8. And to me, it seems like a very good process. It's fair for everybody. But as a senator, I'm also up here today thinking we have a chance to give students their money back. Not give them their money back, but to use it efficiently. And to finally, give them their money back. Let them use what their student fee is being paid for. So I advise everyone to sort of look at both sides of it, because that's definitely what I'm doing right now. And definitely understand that you both have funding board recommendation. You also have to remember your constituents and remember the people that you're here to represent, making sure that they're getting what they elected you for.
Next, Senator Franconi.
It's been about a year since I've done public speaking. This is for those of you who are a member of CR and you're on the Senate. You carry an inherent bias. This is a conflict of interest for you to vote in favor or against this. So I strongly urge members of CR to abstain. This is a vote for Senate, people who are not involved in CR.
Yes. Also, just so that I can help clear this, anybody who is in the Senate that is a member of the College Republicans, you are abstaining. Yes. 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 Good. Okay. Because I can't like not recognize you, but you're abstaining. Huh? If you are going on this trip, is what I mean. You can. It would be out of order. You can do a point of interest if it's like.
Point of interest. If this was open to all students, the email was sent to all student groups, shouldn't anyone
It wasn't sent to all student groups, but it was sent to multiple student groups. So anybody who is not, or who is going specifically on this trip, because there are people not in CRs, or in CRs and not in CRs that are not going on this trip who are all able to vote. If this money is directly benefiting you, you may not vote.
So if I'm not going on the trip, but I'm in the CRs, can I still vote?
Yes, yes you can. Sorry, that was my screw up. All right, next, Comptroller Rana.
Just a couple of points, as our speaker said, you can still vote whatever way you want, but those that are part of college Republicans and would be going on the trip if they voted yes or no, it would be a conflict of interest, so you could lose. I mean, you'd be in violation of your position. So he's strongly recommending. I would want to say I don't want him to vote.
It's impeachable.
Yeah, you can be impeached for voting in favor of if it is a conflict of interest. That's one point. The other point that we've tried to stress with legislative requests often is that the recommendation that funding board gives is objective. The vote that Senate passes is subjective. The very big difference between that is that you guys have the opportunity to be able to use your hearts and your minds to make this decision. Funding board doesn't, because we need someone that's going to operate like a well-oiled machine to do these things. So that's why they make the recommendation the way they do. But you guys as a Senate do have that option to be able to, vote for it. The one thing I would say, contrary to what a couple of individuals did say, is you would be breaking the rule. And we did have this last year with Honors Council, where we had to draft into the legislation itself which policy you'd be overriding. So for example, for this one, if you'd be funding more than 8 members, you'd need to, I wouldn't say you would need to, but I think it'd be strongly recommended for transparency sakes that within the legislation itself, you say exactly which policy you'd be overriding, because you are overriding the policy of 8 cap, based on the way the legislation is written, and just based on the way that the event has been categorized as Category E, I believe. Yeah. So if it says Category E, then in this instance you would be overriding that policy if you were wanting to do more than 8 members. So that's for you all to decide if you want to do that. Again, this is it's a slippery slope as to what you want to make the decision on. But obviously it's a subjective decision and objective decision as members of the Senate.
Right now, I'm just going to bring up the section that it actually says that the Senate has the prerogative to override. But next on the speaker's list is Senator Bergman.
Hi, I just have a few points that I wanted to make. As far as the reason why we should fund this, because it bears clear merit to the student body. Everything that we fund bears clear merit to the student body. We have 500-ish student groups. A lot of them apply for funding. I don't know, what is it, like 400 over that? 500 student groups applied for funding, and they all were subjected to these caps. We do not have enough money to fund all of these groups fully. We have these cuts in place to make it fair. And that's just the bottom line. It is unfair for us to fund this one group more than every other student group, even though it bears merit to the student body. That's not a good enough reason. I haven't heard a single thing that makes me feel that these students should get more money than anyone else. It's not putting more money back into the students and giving more money back to the students. It's giving a lot of students money to 27 particular students when it's against our funding policy. And I also want to say, as far as I think Rachel brought it up, the
the Honors Council legislation that came up our first Senate. I think it was both of our first Senates. Yeah, it was a long Senate. But I just want to say this is a really hard decision. You guys are here and you guys really have to battle with this, and don't feel bad for whatever you decide to do. But it should be hard and it should be a difficult decision that you really need to think through.
Next is Senator Puglisi. Oh, you'll back up.
All right, hello, Senate. So I normally, probably sweating. I normally don't, I use humor when I'm nervous if you can't tell. I normally don't speak up in here, but I do feel really passionately about this because even in the legislation,
It's really difficult to not have like another person here. But wouldn't it have been nice if I had a chief of staff to help me?
Too soon, too soon.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it is the purpose to support as many students as possible in pursuing their passions.
So I believe in that 100%. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as a senator is pursuing people's passions. I think that's beautiful, actually. Like, you can laugh all you want, but like, I don't know. That's something that touches me very deeply. So there are great sides to both points of this legislation, but I just can't help but wonder, what about all those other students that had such passionate views on their organization, on their events, and they got cut? That breaks my heart. I'm not to say that we should stop cutting people's passions now. That's not what I'm saying, because I think pursuing passions is like what we do as senators. Like, that is so important. You need to rise each other up, not belittle each other down. And it gets me really mad when people get really disrespectful in here, because that's not who we are. We are people who raise people up. We are people who let people follow their dreams. And I don't know where I stand on this because I still haven't decided, but I know as senators, we have the power to do this. And I'm not saying to do it. I don't know. I have no idea how I'm going to vote. So I'll probably just flip a coin or something. Kidding, I'm not going to flip a coin. Don't think that I take this lightly. I'm just saying, I want you to think about other people who did get their passions cut. Is that fair? Can we start now and be scrutinized for it? Maybe, I don't know. Is it change? Should we change? These are all rhetorical questions. But I really want everyone to take those things into account. Passion, who got cut before, should we follow the rules? How about some policy changes? Because I think this brings up a great, great point, okay? Passion, people. No, I'm serious. No, you can laugh. I know I'm funny, but it's serious. Like, this is why nobody can take me serious. I don't know why. But I think we need to remember why we're here, like why we get dressed up every other Senate, and Park, wherever he is. I am that girl that does take pretty pictures, but not pretty pictures. I like to take pictures in the corner and post them on Instagram. But I'm also that girl that comes here and I listen to every single point. I take it into such consideration, and I'm literally sick to my stomach right now over this legislation because I want these kids to go, but is it right? I don't know. So I'm just throwing that out there. We are people who pursue people's dreams. So let's make it happen, people.
I clapped for that because she didn't take a position on it, so I'm still neutral, just so everybody knows. Now, Senator Miles.
Okay, so it's pretty apparent here that nobody is really in favor of this policy that cuts, that limits people to 8 people to go on a trip. And because it cripples student initiatives. If we're looking towards making policy change, that seems to be the general aura in the room here, then I really don't see the problem with giving the group the funding that it requested. because it's our jobs as senators, first of all, to give student groups as much money as they request for their initiatives that bear merit to the student body. And I don't think that this is going to open the door to for more groups to like go around the funding policy, which is some of the criticism that's going around right now. I really think that it's like just opening the door to like a beacon of hope for more student groups to actually get the money that they deserve by having policy reform and introducing it to the Senate. I really think that this could be a catalyst for that, rather than being a catalyst for, oh, let's just go around the funding system and just get emergency funding. I really don't believe that at all. I'm not opponent of that. So I don't think that we should deny this group like $1,000 extra from what the funding board recommends them, because it's a speck of the budget in reality. Like if you look at the budget, which we'll see later tonight, it's really insignificant how much more money that we'll actually give them. So I don't really see the need to throw this legislation away just on the sake of consistency. I'm not right with that. And that's what I have to say.
All right. Next, Senator Perez. Also, thank you for your patience. Everybody who's waiting like a really long time. I know it's frustrating. Following Senator Perez, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 4 individuals who have already spoken that are after that.
Okay. So I've been doing a lot of thinking about this legislation, and I think we really had the chance to affect 27 individual college careers here. I want everyone here to think about being the 9th kid in the group, being that 9th person who doesn't get to go, being one away, thinking about having that individual think about all the things they missed out on, the people that they could have met, and the learning that could have taken place, just because we said no. I'm really happy that the Senate wants to spend their money wisely, and that we're debating this strongly, but that I don't think there's any better way to spend our money than to give it back to the students who pay these fees, who pay their tuition, who come here every day, and for us to have the opportunity to lend a helping hand to kids when we can. I don't see why that's a bad thing. And I also think there's enough of us who know which way we want to go on this, and which is why I'm motioning for the previous question.
All right. Yes. All right. Is there a second? Senator Ng. Since we don't have questions, we go straight into a vote. All those in favor of calling the previous question, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Nay. All right. We're going to do it.
Are people who are possibly women in the trip allowed to vote on that?
I mean, yes, I would compel them to abstain, but it is not impeachable if they vote on that. So, any abstentions? Okay, 2 abstentions. All right, so I now need to count you because that was really difficult. So, all those in favor of calling the previous question, please rise. All right. Okay, I'm going to recount you. More people stood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, you may sit. Now, all opposed, please rise. That's not 2/3, but I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, you may sit. Trying to do math now. I'm a poli-sci major, so it's not 2/3. I'm pretty certain, but 22 and 13, that's not 2/3, right? Yeah. No. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, the previous question, that motion fails. So we continue in debate. Now, Senator Cormier.
I simply want to state that I support the decision of the funding board. I find I have full confidence in the astute and discerning minds of the funding board. I find their efforts worthy, their reasoning logical, their advice sound. That is all.
Next, Senator Vieira.
So I started off being really conflicted about this legislation as well, so Cassandra, I feel you. But what really made the decision clear to me was when I asked funding board if it was clear to all groups who are limited to only 8 people that they can go through this process. And the answer was yes. So for me, I think it's just the groups who choose not to pursue this process, it's kind of their loss. I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but because they all have that option, I don't see this as being unfair. So I do think that we should pass this legislation. And if this legislation passes and other groups do start saying, hey, they did it, we can do it too, then maybe, as Senator Myers was saying, this will just act as a catalyst, a change of policy that it seems like most people in this room don't agree with. So I do think that we should pass this legislation.
Next, Senator Ripken.
I'm of the belief that we should adhere to funding policies to the greatest extent possible. I'm also of the belief that for unique situations, Senate should absolutely be encouraged to override those policies. I don't think this is a unique situation in any regard. I think there are a lot of groups out there that have the exact same situation that adhere to funding policies. I don't think anybody is disputing the right of Senate to override those policies. But I think it's important that not to completely ignore those policies either. You know, we're not starting and going arbitrarily delegating money where we don't have to. I think I see both sides of this issue, and I think there's an important distinction to make between changing policies for the future and voting against policies right now for one specific instance of a really normal circumstance. I think a lot of people in this room would be very supportive of changing policies for the future. I would encourage that, and I think that that should be done for next semester. And then, based on those policies, it's a continuing system of greater fairness. At the present time, I don't have a vote, but I would encourage everyone to not pass this legislation because it does not go in line with extenuating circumstances, and these are the policies we have right now. Thank you.
Next, Senator Ng. Okay. Next, Senator Sponzo.
I would like to reiterate what was just said. I think that if we want to change the policies, which, and this is just said, but if we want to change the policies, I think that's something that we should think about doing for the next semester. But at this point, if there's no distinct reason that we can look at this specific club and say, they need every single person to go that originally wanted to go. If they don't have a specific reason why more than 8 people need to go, I think we need to respect the fact that we've denied groups in the past funding on the basis of that policy and recognize the fact that this group is no different than the other groups that we've denied in the past. That's not to say that I don't think that the policy shouldn't be changed. I think that in the future that's something, that initiative we should take to change the policy. But in this moment, we need to respect the fact that we've treated other groups in a certain way, and this group is no different and needs to be treated in the same way.
All right, next, Chairperson John, who has been waiting very long. Don't try.
So, yeah, I have a few things. Don't like the policy, change it. That's me. And remember, I want everyone to remember that I speak strictly as funding board chair. So I'm professionally and very strictly speaking as a member of funding board. I'd just like to also mention that this group has been funded for right now in the funding system, $10,000 for a speaker for the semester, so this nears their cap. I just want to clarify something open to everyone. So this is a situation that I like to point out. So there was a group recently that stated that they wanted registration fees for something that was open to everyone. Okay, so it was funded at 100%. But when I looked at the roster and I looked at the attendees, it was members solely from that group, which leads me to believe that before it was, and when it's open to everyone, it is advertised openly and it is sent to, it is made visible to every member of the undergraduate student government, not sent to specific groups, not sent to, you know, the people that are on your emailing list. It is made visible to everyone in the undergraduate student government. That's my clarification on it was made available to everyone. It wasn't. And going back to the group, when I looked at their roster, and when Dawn and Daria, who were the bookkeepers that processed paperwork, looked at it, they had also mentioned that it needs to be clarified that it was not technically open to everyone. I don't know if that made sense, but if you have questions, you can ask me after. And the other thing is, yes, so we obviously have made the point that this policy should be changed, and I'm sure by next semester, by next year, that this policy will be amended and it'll be changed. The roster of this group that was submitted to funding board has a big amount of sophomores and freshmen and underclassmen and people who still have time here. So if the policy is changed, which, you know, it sounds like it's going to be, then next semester they can apply for it again and they can all go. But right now, 8 people need to go.
Can you, I don't know if you can yield to the classroom senators or representatives in the group, what other groups were contacted about the attending this conference? I mean, I know I'm on like 8 million mailing lists,
Yeah.
so nothing, but I'm also bad at reading emails.
I will yield to sponsor Maximbo, who can then yield to.
How many meetings are this?
Yeah.
I'm actually the person who did plan this. I did open it up to several other groups. For example, Young Americans for Liberty, I did send them an email stating, you know.
Do you have a full, like, do you know all of the ones you sent it to, just so we can get like a numbers?
I mean, what I did was, in terms of the group itself, I did open it up to college Republicans first. And then I said, okay, if there's any friends that are interested in going to CPAC, please let me know. Young Americans for Liberty was one that I emailed directly. And I stated, you can come on this trip, you're welcome to come on this trip. Unfortunately, I did not get a reply from them. You know, in terms of those in the group, I did say if there's any friends that are of the same mindset of going to CPAC, you're more than welcome to come. I mean, CPAC is obviously something that's pertinent to only one, I guess, you know, conservative political action conference. I mean, with all due respect to the engineering majors, I mean, you know, an engineering group is probably not interested in going to CPAC.
So, to answer your question, the only other group you officially contacted was the Young Americans.
Young Americans for Liberty is the one organization I did
So
because they are permitted to do CPAC, correct?
But there's documentation for it.
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, next is, where are we? Oh, Senator Burke.
Okay, so as many people have said before, sounds like we might change the policy. I doubt that any of us in this room would think it's responsible to make the policy even be able to include 27 members. I don't think we're gonna raise the cap to 30 people and that would apply to this. Think about it, if we raise the cap, and I know this is getting a little off, but just to kind of gauge the fiscal irresponsibility we're talking about, is that if we raise the cap to, let's say, 30, which this would apply to, we're going to fund hotel rooms for all those people, plane tickets for all those people, registration for all those people. Every group is going to be asking for $12,000. The college Republicans have already gone towards that number with this piece of legislation, as Funding Board Chair Johnny said. I agree with Parth. We need to use our hearts and minds to vote on this piece of legislation. It is Senate's prerogative to vote on this. I would strongly urge you to use your mind really hard and think about the consequences of saying groups who are denied funding, they're told they can come to Senate, right? But if we start doing this on a regular basis, saying, okay, you can come, and then every group just gets funded for basically whatever they want. We don't have enough money to do that. There's a reason we have funding board, and so that we can have a budget. There's a budget so that we don't run out of money, and we can keep track of where the money is going, and we can work with the bookkeepers to, we have a certain budget to make it very clear where money is going, right? If everyone starts coming to Senate because they're denied at an 8-person cap, it defeats the point of a budget. So just keep that in mind. We are a body that's in charge of a lot of money that has to keep a budget. We have a budget for a reason. And let's not give this group special privilege over anybody else just because they came to Senate. Thank you.
Next, Senator McNamara, or Deputy Speaker McNamara.
I'm good. All right. First thing, I want to tell Senator Puglisi, follow your heart. That speaks lovely. Second thing, the college Republicans, have not exceeded their funding cap. Every group is given a cap of $12,000, and as Chairperson Johnny mentioned, they have only been funded up to $10,000 right now. This would not exceed that. So in terms of budgeting, they're not going out of the budget. They're not exceeding the amount of money that USG has available to allocate to these groups, because we do have a $400,000 surplus in addition to the amount of funds that we already have to allocate to these groups. Second, I want to reiterate another point made about the funding. The funding board I have no doubt in their ability. They are smart. They are intelligent. As Will Cormier said, they are extremely, I don't remember the exact word, but I'll say diligent people. And their request, I'm sure, follows exactly what the funding policy is. But, once again, it's the Senate's prerogative. It's the Senate's ability and power to circumnavigate this recommendation and say that we're going to fund these groups. In fact, the funding board even recommends or shows these groups how they can do it. They give them a list of the senators they can talk to. They can say you can still get funding through legislative requests. Will it override this funding board's decision? Yes. And there's a lot about this kind of slippery slope fallacy that if we fund this group, then suddenly, everybody's going to come in here and we're going to fund whatever they want. But the truth of the matter is I think when it comes to this body, I think we all are intelligent enough to know what shows clear merit to the student body and what is a reasonable thing to fund and what isn't. And to be honest, this is a reasonable thing to fund. This workshop, this presentation that these students are going to be going on will help them pursue their own personal goals. They will help them realize at their time at this university what their potential as human beings are beyond this university and after they graduate. And I know, that might sound like a pie in the sky, far-fetched kind of thing, but personally, and I hope many of you believe that, I joined USG because I wanted to help students. I wanted to advocate for students, but I also wanted to develop skills, interacting with other people, debating, crafting legislation. That's what this group is about. We have $1.2+ million, I have 1.6 maybe with the surplus, that we as students get to allocate, but also use as our own organization to fund ourselves. Why should it be any different for other groups? Why can't we give them the funds they need to use to further their own goals? So once again, it is our duty, we took an oath, to advocate for students. This is the opportunity, by voting yes, to advocate for the interests of the students who came to us and asked us to help them. Please vote yes. Vote your conscience. Thank you.
Next, Chairperson Condon.
Okay, so time travel again, back to Honors Council. That long debate, what ended up pushing it in their favor was that they were presenting at their conference. Two, I want to fund as many student groups as possible. I think a lot of people that know me know I'm all about giving people money. I try to co-sponsor as much as I can as a committee. And it makes me nervous, A, when you talk about pursuing their passions and goals, the way I think you worded it, was as a networking event, and I'm gonna ask a lot of people to next. I don't think it is a networking event, but for anyone thinking that, the way it was worded came off that way. I don't think it's a networking event. Also, talking about pursuing passions, Honors Council, my first Senate, not this past fall, the fall before, was passed. There has not been one group since then that we have not cut to 8 members in funding board and in this room. I use History Club because I wrote it and because I remember debating with Dan for a long time. But there have been tons of groups that have come up here and we've said, no, you're still getting cut to 8 members. Executives, I'm going to urge Mark and I'm going to urge Rashida to come up with an ad hoc to review the funding policies because clearly there's a problem. But I'm also going to say, yes, we keep going back to this one club, but there have been tons of clubs before that and tons of students who have had passions, and we said your passions aren't important enough to let more than 8 people. And there's not many clubs that come for funding that have less or equal to 8 people. So that's just something to consider because that is the only other group I can think of that we have ever gone above 8 people in this room for. And they were presenting at their conference. And I also don't have any vendetta against CRs. I actually want to thank the people back there who don't have to be here and they're from college Republicans. This has been a really fun Senate. We'll see you again. But I mean, commend them because this is why groups don't come for legislative funding because it's a shit show up here. And they worked really hard for it. I don't care. It's true. You know, I would not want to be a group to come up here. And I've talked to plenty of other groups I'm part of. And when you're a group and you're presented the option, which my CFO was, to come and do legislative funding, he's like, no, that's a policy. I'm not going to break it. Things to consider. So I think everyone's kind of going back and forth on both sides, and you can vote this down if you agree, but I'm going to call the previous question.
Did you tell the previous
Yeah, I did.
All right. Honestly, because there are so few people still remaining on this speakers list, and we already voted it down once, I'm not going to recognize it, just because we finally are whittling it down to the bone. Next is Senator Bergman. But if it gets repetitive, I will cut people off. Sound good? Everyone? Can I what?
You motion to exhaust the speakers list, and it's basically
It's like the same
the
thing.
same thing, but we don't usually do it here. Anyways, I just wanted to say for a second that when I have sponsored legislation for groups, I have told them what our funding board policies are, and I have cut, the amount on those legislations, and I tell the groups, I'm like, this is our funding policy. The chances are highly not in their favor to have their legislation passed if it's not within the funding policies. It's when we have I remember it being said that it's a student group's loss for not coming up here and asking for money. And we do have students come up and ask for money, but we could I can't think of another time besides the one time that Rachel talked about where we had students come up and ask for more money, and that was something that actually happened, that it wasn't cut beforehand, that the efforts to make it within our funding policies hadn't already happened. And I also want to say that with the thing that we did fund over it for, they were presenting and they also couldn't go at all. The thing that they wanted to do couldn't happen at all if we didn't fund them for more money. And for these guys, it's just 27 people, 27 college Republicans and maybe their friends and some Young Americans for Liberty who want to go on this trip. And I haven't heard anything being said that they can't go on this trip, that it can't happen, that their members still can't get the information, bring it back to their group members, and present themselves on what has happened if they don't get the full funding for 27 people. So, that's it.
Senator Pierre.
Okay, I'm kind of talking on the spot because I'm totally conflicted again. I don't know what to do, but I do just want to make the point and keep in mind that I've heard it said, this group is no different, et cetera, et cetera. When other groups have presented the option, they don't want to do it because high likelihood of failure. And I think that's what does make this group different, is that they did go ahead and pursue that option when not a lot of groups do. I understand that groups have done that in the past, but it doesn't seem to be that many of them in comparison to the 500 groups that do pursue funding through the normal funding process. So I think we should keep that in mind, that it is a bit of a unique situation compared to the norm.
Next, Senator Puglisi. No, you yield. You have 4 seconds.
Okay, I'll make it real quick. I'm gonna stop talking. Okay?
No, please don't.
Hi again, everyone. You missed me.
Okay. So I wanted to say just one thing. Again, it's kind of vague because I still don't know where I stand, kind of. But if we approve this, I will be that annoying person that gets up here every single time with any other funding that we call into question and be like, remember that one time when we passed this? Yeah. Like, if we do this for them, I urge every single one of you to think about this, to think with this kind of mindset. Mind versus heart. And I know we have a funding board that makes like such sound suggestions, and I'm losing my train of thought. I'm just urging you all to like think like every single time with this kind of thought process about people's lives. Like, these are people's lives that we impact. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, this is just not some arbitrary number that we're voting on. Oh, do I feel like it today? Yes. Well, I've had a bad day, and I'm going to say no because this group this many years ago didn't get the funding that I didn't want. Rachel, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that because I think it sucked that those groups. Am I?
You are. I'll allow it.
My mom doesn't like.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just saying, like, yes, it's unfortunate that those groups did not receive funding, but did we think about those personal lives and personal matters when we voted them? So, even if you do still think the way you feel about this legislation, please take in mind every single time that we are funding something that is for people's personal lives, for people's personal matters, and it's a passionate thing. Okay, so always think about that, like it's people's lives, not some number.
Okay, next, Senator Rifkin.
Sorry guys, I'll be quick. I feel like this debate has been crafted to a certain extent into an argument between heart versus mind. You know, mind because it seems to a lot of people that the intelligent thing to do with the intelligently thought through funding policies are to strike us down, and heart because we're moral people and we want people to have all the opportunities they can. That is not the equation here. It's not heart versus mind because that neglects to take into account all the heart and all the emotion for all the other groups that did not have the same opportunity. I think you have to extend the heart to them if you're going to extend the heart to this individual group. That changes the equation, right? If you take the fundamental fairness of this into mind, I think that incorporates the heart as well, and we should not fund this. I'm sorry to those who are.
There are more people on the speakers list. Here's what I'm going to do right now, and this is going to be kind of weird. I'm going to step down from the chair and ask to be recognized. The chair is going to go to Chairperson Rana because he is literally the only person in the train of succession that can still be a person.
All righty.
I'm going to debate.
I'm going to recognize Kevin Alvarez to the floor.
Thank you. Okay. The reason I'm debating right now, which I would normally never do, but this is a debate that we've had time and time again, especially when I first started out in this organization, and I think it's important for me to at least push you in a certain direction. The reason that I'm even speaker, the reason that I made any semblance of a point in this organization was back when I was a freshman. Funding, emergency funding and legislative requests were brand new. No one had done them before. And there was this debate over whether we fund them to their maximum extent, whatever we can, or whether we go by the policies every single time. And time again, during my first and my second years in this organization, we approved whatever came before us because we wanted to give as much of an opportunity to our student body as possible. The reason that we have the policies is so that, by and large, we have a system that works, that is efficient and functioning. However, this particular policy, if we come across one that we think is unjust or not a smart policy, then we have a right to overrule it. And I think it's important that groups come to us and say, we don't believe that this policy is correct, can you fund us anyway? Which draws our attention to what policies need to be reformed. So if we're going to say, if you don't like the policy, reform it, I absolutely think we should reform this policy, but we should also, this being essentially the case that is brought to us, saying, should we or should we not? I think we should absolutely say, if we think this is a bad policy, then we should approve this funding. Also, what I would say, and why this is a bad policy in general, and why we should approve this, what was mentioned before, they were approved for another $10,000 to bring a single speaker to campus. As we fund, that is part of our funding policies. Many groups do that. $10,000. This is less than $2,000 to hear a slew of candidates speak, of major public officials speaking, including senators, governors, potential future presidents, are all going to be at this for a significantly reduced, don't get too happy there. For this to be a significantly reduced cost that was open to the entire student body. I was personally, as a Democrat, as well as many other Democrats, were actually invited to attend this. And I never thought I would stand up in front of anything and say this, but the College Republicans is one of the most inclusive groups I have ever come across on this campus, where everybody is welcome, where they genuinely encourage civic responsibility and engagement. And so I think in times like this, it is our job, our obligation, our prerogative to approve this funding because it is the right thing to do. So think with your heads and your hearts. In your head, it makes sense because we're funding a group, we serve the student body, and this is a 27-person group that is then able to, from all different places on campus, who is able to see a truly unique event and experience that informs them, that makes them engage. And so that is the direction that I would strongly suggest this body take. I'm your speaker. You can disagree with me, but the reason that I was elected was because during my tenure here, I have said, look at what we can do instead of what we can't. This is something we can do, and this is an opportunity that we should not pass up.
Next, we will recognize, who's next? Senator Ng.
I'm also going to go down trip memory lane. And Rachel, the group you're thinking about was pre-pharmacy. A group came to us with similar legislation for them to go to a pharmacy conference. It was a little bit more like career advancement based, but we did deny them their funding, kind of set precedent for what we were going to do. Granted, that was like a year and a half ago. So like, oh, last semester? God, school goes by really slowly. Yeah, and so I will also call to the previous question because I think you said 2 hours with the stuff.
I'm going to not recognize that just because we only have 2 people left on the speakers list. So we have Senator McNamara and then Senator Byrd, and then after that, I'm not going to recognize anyone.
That was last sentence.
Senator Byrd first. Sure. And then Senator McNamara is the last member of the Senate that will speak on this debate.
Perfect, because I had to refute a couple things that Senator McNamara said earlier. Okay, so first thing he said, well, not the first thing, but one of the things he said was we budget every group up to $12,000 because that's what we can afford. Well, if we budgeted $12,000 for every group, we needed $6 million funding board budget. So that's just not an accurate statement whatsoever. He also brought up why every tier 2 can't be treated like a tier 3. Well, it's because they're not tier 3, and the administration says that tier 3 and tier 2s are different for specific reasons. So I also agree with, I forget who said it now, so many people have spoken, that many groups, when they're denied funding, just kind of accept, and I've dealt with this with groups that I funded both last year and people who came to me for emergency funding, that they kind of just accept the rules. They're like, oh, well, we can only have 8, that's fine if that's the rule. They understand that like we have a budget, there's certain rules that everyone has to follow. So I guess some groups know that we have the ability to override the policies, but a lot of groups are just like, you know what? I understand that, to be fair, everyone has to follow the same rules. And to Speaker Alvarez's point, I respect your point, but this, and I don't really know how this has to do with this event or this legislation being passed, but I think you just said something incorrect, that this was open to the student body. Rachel brought up the point that the bookkeeper said this was not open to the student body, it was open to CRs. Who said, oh, sorry, she just said that. It was open to CRs, it was open for Young Americans for Liberty, and their friends. Apparently it wasn't open to engineers, and apparently it wasn't open to me because I can't go see conservatives speak as a liberal Democrat. So it wasn't open to the whole campus, which I don't know how that affects that. I just wanted to make you guys aware. As Chairperson Johnny said, it wasn't open to the whole student body. I urge you to vote no. Let's just follow the rules. I think it's a better idea. We have a budget for a reason. We have policies for a reason. And I've made my case several times already.
Thank you, Senator Byrd. Last, we have Senator McNamara.
All right, so to wrap this up, which is pretty cool. First, to Dan Burr's point about the $6 million, I get that. As far as I understand, though, like you can't, fund a group over $12,000. That's the max that they can get funded. And my point when I was saying that was this group hasn't exceeded that limit yet. I mean, obviously it's ridiculous to try and give every group $12,000. I understand, and I understand. Also, Tier 3 organizations are funded by student fees, the same as Tier 2 organizations. The thing is, we give student fees out to Tier 2 organizations. That's how we fund them. The funds that we allocate to these groups are student fees. We're giving back what the students put into the university through these extracurricular activities. These extracurricular activities, this USG is an extracurricular activity. College Republicans is an extracurricular activity. That's the point I was trying to make, in that Tier 3s are funded by student fees and Tier 2s are funded by student fees. We're all we are at this university together. We are all trying to pursue our own initiatives, our own goals, and we each do it differently. College Republicans and the students that they invited to attend, such as Kevin, who is actually a liberal, as Dan pointed out, I'm sure they would have invited anyone to attend. The point is, their goals might be different from ours. But that doesn't mean we can't fund them. That doesn't mean that we can say that because of a funding policy that was recommended how much we fund this group, that we suddenly have to say, well, no. Well, we're not going to allow this group to go see these very influential people speak. We're not going to allow them to pursue their own goals and ends. And there's been a ton of great points about following the rules and following the procedure. But listen, the funding board follows the procedure, and they do a great job of it. And in fact, tonight, I think we've seen how great of a job they've done of it, because everybody now knows the 8-person maximum. But we are the Senate. We get to decide if this group gets funding or not. They brought it to us. They brought this issue about the 8-person maximum to us. And to deny them funding because of precedent seems counterproductive. If we all agree that or most of us agree that it's I don't want to use counterproductive again, but I'm going to use it. Counterproductive to fund them only up to 8 people. These are student fees, like I said, time and time again. Let's give it back to them. They deserve this because it's theirs. So, recall the previous question for this.
This is done.
Yeah,
So.
all right. Anyway, please understand that as senators, we have a duty to advocate for our constituents, and we have a duty to fund groups as much as we can. Thank you.
All right, so now we are going to move into a vote. The way we're going to do this is we're going to do a standing vote so we can get the numbers for yeas, nays, and abstentions properly. So, all those in favor of passing an act concerning funding for UConn College Republicans, please rise. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Thank you. All those against this legislation, please rise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Thank you. All those who abstain, please rise. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The legislation fails. Can you not, please?
So, I think that was a bad idea. But, That's how it goes. So, now we move into, sorry, the agenda's on Connor's iPad. Oh, I was hitting the wrong buttons. There we are. Okay. Now we move into report of the executive, President Sargent.
One of the many great aspects of being a part of student government is the political arena and being able to debate and voice your opinions. And I commend all of you. I'm sure you could see me up there. It was a hard situation to see, but I greatly respect those who went up and debated. And I fundamentally think that is one of the best things that is a part of our, not only just this university, but our country, is the right to free speech and to be able to speak your mind in any way that you can. So thank you for debating on this issue, and I know it's a hot button issue, so thank you for also being patient. So I will move into my report now. Being a member of the executive committee, I'm also a member of Senate Exec, which is the governing body for University Senate. And we had a report from Wayne Locust and the Graduate Admissions Department of Financial Aid. I also met the new CFO of the university. There's an increase in over 34,000 applicants for the fall 2015, and the numbers will continue to rise. That will go along following suit the next generation program. The difficulty, I think, in these departments is actually keeping up with just the request that Next Gen demands on our institution. I met with the Greek Council presidents, minus Pan Hellenic, to discuss future policy change and how we can benefit promoting the Greek-led community. Hopefully we'll have representatives to appoint our next Senate. They were unable to attend this Senate as ex officio members of this body. I still remain in close contact with other cultural centers, with Speaker Alvarez, and we'll continue to also appoint members to this body. We have one appointment today. I spoke with Senator Myers, and I know we briefly talked about this last caucus, about repositioning the P&O committee back under the umbrella of senior staff. And I met briefly with the programs director how we can see if we can evolve that position going forward with this year with new programs. Last Tuesday, I met with the Chief of Police O'Connor to talk about how things went last semester, how we can improve going forward. And one of the discussions that hopefully will come out of this is working closely with Title IX Coordinator Elizabeth Conklin and building a strong relationship and distinguishing the difference between the student code of conduct, the student policies, and the legal policies of criminal acts. I met with Cindy at the SABO office, so those are regular meetings that I'll have with the business office now, and there's a new individual under there, Kimberly. So if you're interested in going to those meetings, please contact me. And I also met with Dr. Gilbert for the first time with Vice President Romani to talk about USG initiatives. This past Tuesday, I met with President Herbst to talk about some of the issues that are going on off campus, seeing how we can deal with matters, and I'm sure Chairperson Kugler will go more into details about the legislative session. And I will be hopefully meeting with Johan and Matt Murray at SUBOC to see how we can restructure the collaboration between SUBOC Policy Council and USG. I also met with Comptroller Rana and representatives for U21 to discuss the logistics for preparing for potentially 2016. And Comptroller Rana did a phenomenal job representing the undergraduate student government at the SFAC meeting, where we proposed our budget to the committee. And so I'd like to actually give him a round of applause. And last but not least, I informally went to the Black History Month celebration in the African American Cultural Center with Speaker Alvarez, and it was a phenomenal event with spectacular performers and speakers, and I definitely recommend all of you to continue keeping up with the events throughout the month of February. So if the Speaker allows, I will go into appointments. First, I'd like to appoint our first ex officio member from a cultural center, the African American Cultural Center, and that's Hadia Ali. Hadia, if you mind standing.
Does the nominee accept her nomination? Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Yes, Senator Rifkin.
I have a question for you.
Please come. You can come up and you come to this mic. So you can come next to Mark.
You can come up here.
Sorry.
Sure, I'll just ask the question and hope that it will be yielded to President Sargent. I'm just wondering about the nature of this position specifically. I'm sure you've been over this before, but I just want to clarify whether this is a senator position, if I understand correctly, and it will have speaking rights and voting rights, not voting rights.
So to give you just the historical context of this, last year, the Constitutional Review Committee went through and saw how we could balance between the MCD senators and ex officio members. We thought it best to create 5 ex officio senator members who are speaking rights, who can represent the cultural centers to the best manner, because historically MCD seats have not been represented by the cultural centers. So what we did was we reached out to all the cultural centers, and Hadia was one of the candidates from the African American Cultural Center who came forward and expressed extreme interest in the position.
Sure, thank you very much.
Next, Senator Burt. Gotcha. All right, is there any other questions regarding this nomination? Or are there? Sorry, proper grammar. Senator Brocklow, then Senator Rifkin again.
Hi, welcome. After sitting through that beginning of Senate, are you excited?
Next, Senator Rifkin again, if no one else.
Hi, I'm excited for you and others to come join our body. I think it's important for these just to, before we vote, just get to know you a little bit. So I was just wondering if you could just briefly speak to, why you're interested in this position and if you have any plans specifically. Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Hadia. I'm a freshman here. I'm an Africana Studies major on a pre-law track. I have a minor in women, gender, and sexuality studies. My interest in this really stems from just feeling, underrepresented in the student government as it stands. I feel like being in the cultural center, people don't really know exactly what goes on here. It's obviously very hard work, but I wasn't really sure what goes on before I came here tonight. I think it's important for all student body members to be represented and to have a voice and to really just have a say in what goes on.
No, there's no one next. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for questions? Is there any debate regarding this nomination? Oh, sorry. You should probably tell her what you're doing because, you can. Is there any debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. You can stand. All right. All those in favor of approving this nomination as an ex officio representative from the African American Cultural Center, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passed. Oh, and you can now sit like at a normal table. Yeah. Oh, you're getting your stuff. Yeah. Not like the tables are like special, like it's the same chairs, but no. Yeah.
Hadia, it's an honor to be having you represented from the Cultural Center here. And as an active member of this organization, I know we haven't had much of representation from the Cultural Centers in quite some time, so I'm honored and pleased to have you as a representative as part of this governing body. Next, Mr. Speaker, if it allows, I would like to appoint Colin Ng as the chair of the USG Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee.
Yes, I will allow it.
So if I may, Mr. Speaker, just give some background on this committee.
You can.
So what the Strategic Planning Task Force would be is to create a more sustainable constitution with the increased enrollment with next generation programs and the initiative for the master plan. I think it's important for us to look ahead, 5-10 years down the road, so that this governing body is still effective. The consideration of structural changes within our own governing body, I think, is important, and to establish a long-term inclusive relationship with the UConn student body is not only imperative now, but it's imperative for the Huskies of tomorrow.
Are you done? You gotta give me a signal. Good God. Okay, long pauses are not good for me because some people like to pause between their speaking. So, do you nominate?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, will the nominee please rise? Yay. Does the nominee accept? Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Yes, Senator Vieira.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Wondering if you had any specific parts of the Constitution in mind, what you're talking about with the
So just as a context of where this kind of stemmed out of, I know there was a debate last semester over a piece of legislation for the representation of the multicultural diversity seats, and just seeing how this conversation had happened in the past, and in just tying that up with all the number of students coming into this campus, I think we need to look into how we want to even restructure this seat. Do we want to make this a bicameral legislation? Do we want to make it one body? Do we want to get rid of our judiciary? How we want to do this is a blank slate, proposing these situations 5-10 years down the road, so that in the event that this is unsustainable, we have a process to implement a new governing body.
Are there any other questions regarding this nomination? Senator Rifkin.
Hey, sorry, I just think it's important for these kind of positions that we hear from the individual, if you have any specific plans or anything that you have in mind.
You can saunter on up here.
Then the side column, I know, I just kind of stole a lot of pictures of it, so I apologize for that.
So specific things like the chair, the seats, also kind of looking at the committees. A big thing is kind of just how we, I guess, just planning for the future. So, I mean, how our committees work, how we interact with the student body is a really important way. I mean, right now we don't have any really standing rules about how we communicate to them, and if we do, they're kind of not followed. So kind of just more accountability on us, and just try to plan so we can actually do our jobs properly. I mean, if you guys have read the Constitution and the preamble is like really great, and whenever I read it, I get goosebumps because we actually like don't do any of it. So, I mean, read the preamble if you get a chance, and that's what I want us to actually be seen as. So,
Woo!
Yeah.
I was given no signal again.
Oh,
so
sorry, I'll do it like behind the back or something.
that seems inappropriate. Are there any other questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding that? What do you want? Oh, debate? Okay. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? President Sargent.
I wanted to add a couple more points. This is this organization. When I was a freshman year, and we're all playing Throwback Thursday today. When I was a freshman, this organization was completely different from what we see today. We didn't have these kind of conversations. It was kind of like, hey, let's all have fun and possibly do things for students. And now that we're actually doing things, I think this is the best time because we have some of the brightest people in this organization to get these policies intact, so that down the line, if 5-10 years from now we go back to my freshman year, which God forbid we don't, we actually have can help them along the way and be like, hey, how about this now? Now I'm giving it
Good. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving Colin Ng as chair of this task force?
USG Strategic Planning.
USG Strategic Planning Ad Hoc Committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? I'll abstain. 2 abstentions.
I wish you the best of luck. Next, I will like to appoint a Community Standards Review Committee. I'd like to appoint Chief Justice Bluen.
Does the nominee accept? Are there any questions regarding this nomination? I don't, everybody's kind of going like this. Yes, Chairperson Hines.
Wait, what is this one?
The Community Standards Review Committee.
Never. I heard you.
Senator Rifkin?
I just have the same question. I'm just wondering if you can speak a little bit about what you envision.
Last semester, one goal that the judiciary had was to kind of expand beyond the walls of USG and to, enter into aspects where they could use judicial representation. One aspect that came up was community standards and also student activities, which runs under community standards, because the process where they have the hearings and where they make the decisions, we thought it would be a good idea to have student representation on that board that makes the decisions, because their sanctions directly affect specific students. After talking to people in community standards and student activities, we hit a bunch of roadblocks because it was a very established system. So the purpose of this ad hoc is to come up with a plan and go to the Board of Trustees to propose this plan of having student representation on this board, whether it be just judicial representation or also representation from the student body. So that's the purpose. It's an exploratory committee where we come up with a plan and go to the Board of Trustees to propose this because of the roadblocks we hit last semester.
Are there any other questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? Yeah, just moonwalk backwards there. Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving Katie Blumen as chair of Community Standards Review Committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? 2 abstentions.
And for my final appointment, I'd like to appoint Justice Andrew Stern to the Judicial Review Committee.
Does the nominee accept? Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Yes, Senator Rifkin.
Well, first I'm wondering what this committee is. I'm not sure.
This was the committee that he just, to my understanding, oh, it was passed last time, correct? That you nominated last time?
I'll yield the floor to the judiciary.
The purpose of this committee is it's an exploratory committee to relook at the judiciary's role in student government, to give them more to say. For instance, Senate, we have Dustin LaVoy and Connor McNamara, who are our 2 senators that are going to be working on this committee with myself and Katie, and we're just exploring different opportunities.
Great. Are there any other?
Also yield the floor to Chief Justice.
So this committee was formed last semester, and I was nominated as the chair. However, because Claire is no longer president, her nominations dissolved, and therefore I thought it was a good idea to have my Deputy Chief Justice Andrew Stern appointed as the chairman of this committee. Like he said, this is to expand judiciary's role within USG, to expand our role in the legislative process, have the review to make sure that everything in any piece of legislation passed is constitutional. And also, like I mentioned, I think at our first Senate meeting, another idea is to have a liaison between the daily campus and USG, ensuring that everything printed is true. Again, that would go under judicial review of all the articles to make sure there aren't libelous things printed, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So the purpose of this committee, when it originally was formed last semester, was to expand judicial representation within USG and just to make sure that everything's in line with the policies.
All right. Are there any other questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving Andrew Stern to the Judicial Review Committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? I abstain.
So, I know that was a long report and we did a lot with those appointments. I encourage you all to follow up with these individuals, get to know them on a personal or professional level. I think it's important because of what we're doing is a lot of changes for the long haul. So while I might not be seeing any of these changes, the freshmen in this room will see a good amount of these changes. So hopefully you can continue in being involved in these conversations because this is the betterment for the future of the UConn community. So thank you, and for that, I'll yield back to the speaker.
Are there any questions for the president? Senator Brugler.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Mr. Speaker, if I may. So we have actually, as an aside, an open seat on course and curricula and growth and development. Growth and development is this Friday at 10 a.m. I will be attending, but if anyone else is interested, and so is Jake, but if anyone else is interested and available during that time, We're gonna play the game like we played last week. That's it.
Bergman, boom, she's in. So,
Also,
Yeah, that one is Nancy. This Friday, you mind, so.
she's willing to do, growth and development in the future, so.
okay, so the nominee obviously accepts. Are there any questions regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this nomination? Seeing none, unless you have something to, okay. We move into a vote. All those in favor of approving Danielle Bergman to this committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? I abstain. Bergman abstains. Clearly passes.
Okay, and Mr. Speaker, if I could just yield the floor to Jake Rockwell, I apologize for everything a lot, but just to speak very briefly on course and curriculum.
Sure.
So courses and curricula, it meets Monday 1 to 2:30 every other Monday. Basically, it's kind of like the final step before the University Senate to approve new courses, provide new courses, delete new courses that are offered to students at UConn. So if you're interested in looking at courses in the future or getting rid of them, do this committee.
Okay.
Is anybody interested?
Oh, Chairperson Lim does. Oh wait, Justin Lavoy is also interested. Oh, So how about because I don't know how to do this.
Mr. Speaker, if it allows me, actually.
Yeah, sure. Rock paper scissors right now. I will rule. Okay, you either do it now or it's Dustin's. Okay, it's Dustin's. All those in favor. Is there any questions? Any debate? Okay, what's your question? You can ask there. That's fine. I'm just done with this report now.
With this committee, what do you plan on bringing to advocates?
I believe my spot on ACT Affairs could lend a lot to this committee because I'll be able to talk with people that are on the committee, such as ACT Affairs, which contains a great amount of information that would have to do with new and old courses. So we can sort of deal with any courses that students don't want to be dropped. I could be on the board to make sure they don't get dropped if they're important to certain majors. I could also ensure that certain majors, seeing as there's new majors opening up in the university every year, that those courses can be added so those new individualized majors can be accomplished to the best of their ability.
Thank you. Okay, I swear to God, the clapping. Jesus. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of approving Dustin Lavoy to the committee, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? 4 abstentions. Clearly approved. Okay, now.
You have the floor back to you.
Wonderful. Are there any questions for the President? Seeing none, we move into a report of the Vice President. Vice President Romanev.
Hello everyone, I hope everyone is trying to stay healthy during this time. We've had a lot of illnesses here. One thing, so I'll try to keep my report really short. Please do the kudos. We actually have actual kudos things to give out, so more of an incentive to fill those out. And the link can be found in Kevin's emails when he sends out the information about caucus, and also I'll post it on the Facebook page. Thank you to all those who tried to do the SBAC advertising. I know we had a lot of trouble with it, but a lot of you guys helped out with that. I know Mark mentioned some of these things, but I was also at these meetings with Dr. Gilbert, and one thing that stood out to me is that they're planning to hire a part-time counselor during peak season times, which I think is a really good step that they're doing. And then they're also coming up with a few diversity initiatives that just keep your eyes open. They'll start advertising soon. In terms of USG, we're planning to rearrange the office. I, along with Justin, and when Claire was here, we were all working on the office plan, so we do have a plan. We're just waiting on getting quotes from people and just sort of finalizing the process, so hopefully the office it'll be fresh and up and whatever, so it'll look nice. The other thing is we met with President Susan Herbst, and she spoke a little bit about the uncivility after the snow. So I just want to remind all of us, we as student representatives, should just remember, it's okay to have complaints and stuff, just in a respectful manner. And I also think that the task force that we're forming soon regarding the weather will help ease some of this tension. The other thing is I'm one of the people who's going to COSGA, and one of the things that I'm planning on doing while going there is doing sort of like a live blog from there. Like, it's not gonna be fancy, I don't know how to do that. It'll be like a Google Doc where I'll post like pictures of like different events that we're going to during the day, or like some cool things that stood out. So I'll be sending out the link, and if any of you have anything you want me to keep an eye out or whatever, please feel free to contact me and keep an eye out on that. And then the last part of my report is a fun historical fact, since the Vice President is the historian. So in 2009, USG discussed getting a student on the tenure review board. Now that's like a huge thing. It never happened because it was probably really difficult. And then another like funny fact, also that same year, when they had a holiday party, they used guard dog like vans to shuttle people from and to campus. So just a fact for all of you.
Are there any questions for the Vice President? / can we do that again? Seeing none, before we go into report of the, no, you can sit, sorry. Before we go into report of the comptroller, I'm gonna throw everybody back to my freshman year because we've been doing that. And I was originally going to run for freshman class senator, which I would have lost miserably. And then a wonderful person from USG told me, no, run for Northwest senator. And that is why I'm here right now. So Rebecca D'Angelo, who's in the back, who is like the best person ever, everybody should clap for her because she's the reason you got here. I know. But yeah, she's awesome, and everybody should aspire to be somewhat like her because she's wonderful. Now, report of the comptroller.
Again, Rebecca D'Angelo was the same lovely face that got me into the organization as well. If that's good or bad, I don't know that you got, because of her, you got Kevin and I, but so just a couple of things. COSGA is just about good to go. We're going to meet with the COSGA delegates. We're going to meet for like, a little intro and quick little review after Senate, just to go over a couple logistical things. And then at next caucus, I think I've already asked the speaker to allot a little bit of time for us to go over things that us as USG as a whole want the COSGA delegates to do. Because obviously it's 8 people going, but it's the voice of our entire organization that we want to be sending there. So if you have specific initiatives or things that you want us to kind of talk about there, that's going to be the perfect time to do so. The other thing was, as Mark said, we did have our public hearing for the Student Fee Advisory Committee happen on Tuesday. And basically we had to go over our fiscal years 14 through 17, kind of just to make sure that we are using our money efficiently and to make sure that we are putting in efforts to reduce our large surplus of funds, to make sure again that we're using our funds efficiently. Last thing is that we'll have the budget to present. I want to apologize for getting really worked up earlier, but I get fired up sometimes, really unnecessary. Maybe not unnecessary, but I get fired up sometimes. I don't get to debate that often anymore, so it's what I do sometimes. But again, we'll go over it. I'm a little bit more level-headed right now than I was before, but more than anything, I would just encourage you guys to ask any questions of me when we do present that. And just, if we do need to table it, again, we do have the special Senate coming up next week. And then as Senator Gugnano said, we do have until next Senate to be able to vote on it again. So if you guys aren't comfortable with it and you want to talk to committee members a little bit more about it or things like that nature afterwards, you have the right to do so, and then we can table it. But yeah, we'll try and present that and get through those questions quick and efficiently. And at the end of it, if you're still uncomfortable about passing it, I'm okay with that. We can table it until the next Senate. So cool.
Are there any questions for the comptroller? Oh, there it is. Seeing none, we move into report of the. Standing? Oh, seeing none, we move to report of the Chief of Staff. Chief of Staff. No report? Oh, okay. All right, next we move into report of, Speaker. So my report is written over the course of like 8 different pages of writing, so I might not get to everything, but if you have any questions, just let me know. For next caucus, I'll be calling a special session of the Senate. You will not have to be in formal dress for that. It'll probably be very brief and go alongside either before or immediately after our caucus. For our caucus, we will be speaking, thus far, the requests that I've gotten for caucus were the COSGA, discussing things for COSGA, reports from, and we're definitely having reports from anybody who was the point people when we split off into those little groups. You will be reporting on what progress you have made, so be prepared. Don't forget about that. This is your reminder. I've also gotten requests from various other pieces of legislation that we will probably end up discussing for however long our time allows. The special session originally is going to be called because there's legislation from Senator Ghanem, who is currently sick, that she'll be introducing regarding the USG, or the UConn listserv, but it shouldn't, I don't expect it to take too long, but that's your prerogative. We were also discussing an exec. At some point, we're going to be trying to do essentially an around the campus in 8 days thing, which was an idea from Mark from the beginning of this year that we were never really able to put into practice. But through that discussion, we discussed a lot of different endeavors that we will be doing. So at various points, senators will be mandated to be making sure that they're taking part in outreach activities. Every single member of the Senate will be reaching out to their constituents and doing things like that. Deputy Speaker McNamara, sorry, I was going to call him Connor. Deputy Speaker McNamara will also be is helping to organize town halls right now. And as soon as we have a PR director working with senior staff, those will be pretty much, they'll hit the ground running, I would say. Sorry, like I said, I don't remember much of anything else that I needed stressingly, or I really needed to tell you, but what I want to say, even though I stepped down from the chair and debated against, or debated on the side that ended up losing by a narrow margin, I strongly encourage everybody in this organization to step up and debate. It's actually been great these past couple of Senates because I've seen people who have never spoken in this body before really stepping up and really engaging. And so regardless of what my position on things are, I am very encouraged to see people actually deciding and making decisions based off of all the facts and all the information possible. I hope that continues, particularly there's the budget coming up and there's another piece of legislation. But so I am actually very, very happy with everybody. And I also commend people from both sides of the issue, Funding Board for standing up for our policies, and Senator McNamara, Broccolo, and many others who were actually really fighting very hard to try to do whatever they could to help a group get funding, regardless of if we think that is a good idea or not. So that is, I think, my report. If anybody has questions.
Are there any questions for the speaker? Seeing none, we will move to reports of the judiciary. Chief Justice Board.
Hi guys. Just to start with my report, I'd like to swear in Vice President Romanov. You guys did confirm her as Vice President, but just to make everything official, I'm swearing in. So nothing was wrong. Like everything was fine. It's just this makes everything official, so nothing.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry. I don't know why I just thought I had to stand up, but I didn't know what you were actually saying. So, yeah, this is going to happen. Yes?
Has Claire officially resigned? Just a question.
Well, yes. She did it. There is not a piece of paper currently saying that she has resigned. However, she has formally resigned. That was my question too, but she has resigned. She could not come back now and be like, I'm vice president again. No, that wouldn't happen. Because we've already confirmed a new one that's, yeah. Well, she's already confirmed she's the vice president, but she has to be sworn in. Yes?
Don't you think that just for like historical sake, we should have
I do. I am not the president, and I have no idea where he is. But I have urged him to make sure that that happens, and we will certainly have that ASAP. However, she's already just not the vice president, as she has formally resigned in front of everyone. Acceptable? All right. Take it away.
I state your name. Friday, so please make sure to get those in. Also, you guys have been really good about this, so this is no complaint, but just a reminder, no, please no election talk in the office. I haven't seen anything, so thank you for that, following policies. And then finally, as you know, the ad hoc community standards committee was formed tonight. I'm gonna need two senators to serve on this committee, so please submit letters of intent. And I'm going to have those letters due on the 16th, which is in 5 days, and it's Monday. So by Monday night at midnight, please submit those letters to judiciary@usg.uconn.edu. It'll be great. I know a lot of you are currently not serving on any ad hocs, so I encourage you all to apply. We're trying to get some new faces in, and I know that a lot of you are interested in this. As a side note for this committee, if you have any friends in Greek life, it would be great if you could just let them know about the committee if they want to come to meetings once we get those established. Just because they have gone through student activities, so it would be good to get some perspective on how the process actually works. And also the Judicial Review Committee, which Andrew Stern is the chair of. Those meetings are Mondays at 5 p.m. in the SOC conference room, so if you are interested in serving on the committee, feel free to stop by. The justices will be there, so it'll be good.
All right, are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Also, I'm just going to note right now, no, this doesn't have to do with you. I've seen a lot of people leave or like on their computers or doing things that are just not allowed. And so next Senate, I'm going to start being more stringent on that because it's really not okay, and I've been trying to be very, very loose about it, but stop. So that's all. And you're the people that didn't leave early, so I appreciate you. But yeah, that's it. Sorry, Katie, that you have to stand there awkwardly. Next, we move into committee reports. Chairman Lim for Act Affairs.
Hi, I'm Tim. Okay, so quickly for Act Affairs. Last week I met with the Vice Provost of University Libraries, Martha Bedard, and we talked about open source textbooks, extended late night library hours, and the fine arts library situation. I'm going to go quickly one by one. So open source textbooks, Dan and I have been working on this since towards the latter end of last semester. We've been working with Dr. Sally Rees, but that duty has been pushed over to the library folks because the library just has the manpower to pull this off. We were talking about bringing in a workshop from the University of Minnesota, but it was extremely expensive, so my suggestion to Martha was to just have people from UMass Amherst come down and tell us about what happens with open source textbooks, how to write them, how to make use of them, and this is going to be astronomically cheaper than original tag price from the people from Minnesota. And extended late night hours. Because of the snow, the University Masons have been working with facilities and clearing up the campus, believe it or not, that they're clearing this up. And because of that, they haven't measured nor like drilled through the wall, made a hole on the wall to extend into the staff lounge, which is going to be the extension of the current late hours study space. But hopefully by the time the winter is over, they've measured and even better, they've put the door there. So about the Fine Arts Library, I know that there was a huge, I would say, social media mini firestorm about this. There was a petition that was put out by Laura Reyes, and I told you guys last Senate I met with her, but this time I met with administration. Just to clear things up, the library is not going to be closing. They're just looking at ways to make it look better to fit the need of the student body. And one of the petitions they were requesting a lot of things, but these things really kind of pertain to study space. And I plan on talking to the people who made the petition and tell them that how to differentiate what is it that they need, library spaces, study spaces, or library services like collections, computers, and so on. And that's pretty much it. And also for my meeting with Martha. And events for my committee. On March 10th, there will be a meet and greet / reception, no title yet to the event, from 12 to 2:30 at the North Lobby. That's on Monday. Active Affairs Committee senators are required to attend, and I urge all other senators to come. This is a good way to reach out to constituents. There is going to be an academic affairs theme to the event, so try to limit your questions and, I guess, interactions with the student body in that realm of USG. And also, we will no longer be calling care packages event because we are looking to rejuvenate, kind of like make it have some more flair. So we're calling it Swag Bag Day, and that will happen on May 3rd. And finally, I believe Andrew Stern is a candidate for board of directors for co-op, which is very good because there's someone from USG in that group, and he's also the city justice for applicants. So that's all for tonight. Thank you guys.
Why are we so intent on clapping? All right. So, are there any questions regarding the chairman's report? Seeing none, we move into report of external. Chair. Sorry, I forgot to say your name, Chairperson Kugler.
Okay, External Affairs is in the process of planning our spring movie night. Our first choice is April 18th for a date, and we have put in the space request for the Great Lawn, and if not, we will be having it on May 2nd, hopefully. In our last meeting, we also discussed the state legislative session. There's a lot of bills about the UConn Foundation. I know President Sargent said I'd go into more detail. I'll go into a little more detail, but just for the sake of time. I know I've discussed these bills before, so some of the main things are the Safe Nurses, UConn Foundation, and the Board of Trustees bill, as well as open source textbooks. There will be a variety of bills on the UConn Foundation. I'm sure you may have heard some of the controversy over the UConn Foundation. External will be looking into each of those bills specifically to discuss their merits for the student body. But a lot of those bills haven't been written in full yet because it's still the beginning of the legislative session. We're in the final stages of planning our legislative strategy. Vice Chair for State Affairs, Anthony Petrone, is working on that. And we'll be finalizing that and getting to work in the state legislature. Town planner Linda Painter will be coming, she's from the town of Mansfield. She'll be coming to speak to External on February 20th. We meet Fridays at 3:30, so that's not this Friday, but next Friday. And I encourage anyone who wants to come and learn about Mansfield tomorrow, which is the plan for the development of the town of Mansfield. If you're interested in that, please do come and see what's going on. Today was the deadline for additional signers on the letter to the State Board of Education on K through 12, education on bystander and consent education. I know I've been talking about that for a long time. It's finally going to be sent this week, so I'm looking forward to that. I also met with the Students for Sensible Drug Policy. There'll be plenty of time to talk about this in a future Senate, I'm sure. But they are putting a push to legalize marijuana. We just talked about that issue since we're External Affairs and it's an issue with the state, and I'll be in contact with him about that, and we'll be doing more research on that. And then tomorrow, I, along with President Sargent, will be meeting with Michael Kirk and other university administration about the legislative session and where we all stand on that.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? Senator Caruso?
Yeah. I'm not sure.
What's that?
They asked what movie, but we don't know yet.
Oh, well, I can say that we've set a deadline to pick our movie for March 13th. We don't want to pick the movie yet in case a good kids movie comes out before then that we'd like to see. We'd rather pick one that's more up to date.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we move to the report of student development. Chairperson Conboy. Oh, I already checked funding board, but yeah, funding board first. Chairperson Johnny. Also, you moved and I thought you had left. So.
The first order of business I have is that I don't know if I mentioned, but my old vice chair, Hannah Fields, resigned. And I do have a new vice chair, second vice chair, Christian Blasco, and he accepted the position, and he's been phenomenal. Also, my second order, I don't know how to do this, but I'd like to nominate Sarah Elliott. In the past 2 weeks, I've had 6 or 7 new prospective members, one of which who wants to be confirmed as
So the Sarah Elliott to your committee is what you're nominating?
Yeah, to be a voting member of funding board.
Yes. So you will be accepting in her stead. Does she accept? All right. Are there any questions regarding the nomination of Sarah Elliott to funding board as a full voting member? Because we have to confirm their membership. Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there any debate regarding this nomination? Seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of confirming Sarah Elliott to funding board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? I abstain. Clearly passes.
Like I said, I've had 6 to 7 other members contact me through the website, but I asked them to email me officially if they want to be confirmed. So we'll see. Hopefully, I have new confirmation soon. And something I started doing with funding board is talking about exec meetings and what happened in exec and bringing exec agenda to funding board. I think that helps a lot with transparency, so they know what's going on a bigger USG level, because a lot of them aren't senators. I've been meeting regularly, or Parth and I have been meeting regularly with Kim and Cindy from the business office upstairs, and I think it's a lovely channel of communication. They're way more aware of certain situations with these groups than we are, so that's been very good. The subcommittee did an amazing job. I'm sorry I don't have their full report, but they submitted to me a 16-page report outlining the entire. Oh.
It's amazing and beautiful.
Oh yeah, if you guys want to look at it, you can ask Rachel or Kevin. They did it. They met once. I told them it was urgent and needed to be done because Justin and I and Parth and everyone have started meeting with IT companies for a new funding system. So I told them it was urgent, and they put together a 16-page report in one meeting for like 3 to 4 hours, and it was phenomenal. And Christian was in charge of that, so kudos to him. It was phenomenal. So if you do get a chance, please do look at it. And yeah, IT meeting was canceled. The other thing is, usually how we do our reviews is that we give them to individual board members and they review them outside of funding board. However, bookkeeping has suggested that we do them all together. So I'm probably going to have to call a Saturday meeting or something so that we can all review them together. They feel it's best to get them all done at the same time together so that after that you never have to deal with them again. What happens now is that because of mistakes, human error or whatever, we have to follow up a lot later on. So that's how we're going to be doing that. I'm sorry, Dustin, but yeah, that's all I have to report this week.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? Are you going to share this in a Google Doc?
Yeah, I can send it to you.
And then
Okay.
all right. And so next, also thank you.
Unique opportunity where we can get together and really work with other student groups. I actually had a student group today ask me what we were going to be doing and what they could help out with. So that was pretty awesome. We're letting them eat cake. A committee member, Encore Patel, made the entire budget based off of last year and what it could look like this year. And my committee's been doing a phenomenal job of basically splitting up the work and then conquering it on their own because it tends to snow every single Monday of the semester. So this is going to be my next thing. Some of the funding we approved this week is going to publishing these and getting them printed. Danielle's also looking for models for other posters. I don't have my phone on me, but I believe it's going to be Friday. If you are interested in doing it, it's fun. You don't have to have any experience. It's for a really good cause. So if you're interested, male, female, anything, please talk to Danielle. They really need models, and look at how phenomenal the work is coming out.
Not Friday, though.
Not Friday.
The models have to book the room and we're working on it still because they work with the drama department. But it's probably going to be next Monday evening. If you're interested, it's fun.
Yeah.
If you have friends who like taking pictures, I don't know. We just need more people.
Okay, so I'm going to keep going, not to cut you off, Danielle, but I just want to get this through to people. Also,
Sorry.
we are working with the Rainbow Center to co-sponsor an event with them and looking like what co-sponsoring through the committee will look like in the future. And it's really great. Like, it's not just throwing them money and saying, here you go, have at it. We're really working on the project together. Founders Day, still waiting on a reply from the fire department, but everyone else has given us an AOK to shoot fireworks off campus somewhere. The Celeron walkway presentation is still in the works. Shout out to that group. We're still working on that. the ASAC created their own council student groups with representatives to talk about issues, have their own initiatives. If you ever run an Asian night, they run that. They do an Ignite thing. And one, usually I don't report everything they're doing to Senate, but they have this one new initiative they're doing that I think is really important we get involved with. And I told them the task force would definitely support them on this. It's a hashtag called It Starts With Us. And I'm probably going to butcher it when I explain it, but please come to me if you want to know more about it. I can give you the contact information. It's to talk about campus climate at UConn and what you can hashtag. You write to this hashtag what you want to see change, what issues you see on this campus, and then what you want to see change. And they're going to do a bunch of social media events and events on campus to help this. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? Sorry, that was too close to my mouth. Seeing none, we move into report of student services. Chairperson Hines.
First off, I apologize for my attire. I have class right before this, and normally you guys are done by now, but you're still here, so I can't. Couple of things. First off, we are doing a light safety walk with facilities next week, next Wednesday at 5. Basically, what that means is we're going around campus and looking at all the lighting to see where we need more, where we need updates, things like that. I know there's a lot of concern going up to Towers and Husky Village. So if you're interested in coming to that or you have suggestions for me, please email me at my student services account. What's the other thing I was going to say? Katie already mentioned this, but just remember that election packets are due by Friday at noon. They will be time stamping them after noon, so if you don't get it in by noon, we will know and you won't be eligible for candidacy. So please, 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 don't do what I did my sophomore year and get it in after noon, because you will not be eligible for candidacy. One more thing that's kind of like an initiative outside of EOC and student services is I kind of want to do like a chairperson boot camp. A lot of us are going to be switching around in the coming months with the new administration, and I'm graduating. So since I've been a chairperson for 3 years, I just want to give you, like, if you're interested in being a chairperson, a background of what it's all about, what to expect behind the scenes, because I think sometimes people don't realize how much does go in behind the scenes. So if you're interested in that, email me, and yeah, that's it.
Are there any questions for the chairperson? Oh, Senator DeBex.
Will you be sending a notification about that to the committee members who aren't senators and stuff?
About
the boot camp.
I can send it to Kevin. I'll send you information to Kevin, and then Kevin can send it to Senate and USG in general.
Okay, so we'll be sent to USG.
Yes.
Yes. Are there any other questions for the chairperson? Seeing none, we'll move into new business, an act concerning the monthly meeting of regional campuses.
Hi everyone. So this should look very familiar to all of you. This is the legislation that I presented at caucus. So I would also just like to point out that on the agenda, the title is wrong. It is not an act concerning the monthly meeting of regional campuses, but an act concerning the meeting of regional campuses.
All right.
So
Sorry.
we will wait until it is on the projector.
So, while we do this. All right, so since we're going to have technical difficulties, and I'm going to call this anyway. Oh, never mind.
Okay,
This is very simple, and you've all seen it before, so yes, and I know we're all very tired, so I'm just going to get right to it. An act concerning the meeting of regional campuses. Whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with improving the experience of the student body through innovative outreach initiatives. Whereas there has been a perceived disconnect between the Storrs campus and the 5 regional campuses. Whereas all students of UConn should feel included, involved, and valued regardless of whether they attend the main campus or a regional campus. Whereas, as the undergraduate student government of the main campus, it is the incentive of USG to create an innovative, interactive, and welcoming environment for all branches of UConn government. Therefore, be it resolved that the undergraduate student government leaders shall organize with the regional campuses to form mandatory semesterly meetings of the presidents, vice presidents, and any invited members of each regional campus. Be it further resolved that this meeting will serve as a time for the presidents and vice presidents from each campus to inform other attendees of the events and initiatives of their respective student governments and facilitate a forum in which all campuses have the opportunity to discuss the future of UConn. Be it further resolved that the meeting location will rotate among campuses based on population in the following order: Storrs, Hartford, Stamford, Waterbury, Avery Point, and Torrington. Be it further resolved that if extenuating circumstances cause one or both of the president and vice president to be unable to attend, members of the executive branch shall be requested to attend in their absence. Be it finally resolved that the Storrs undergraduate student government supports the creation of a required semesterly meeting of the presidents and vice presidents of each UConn student government to provide updates and information regarding the current projects and initiatives of their respective campuses.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? I'll give the motion to Magnabo and the second to Byrd. Are there any questions regarding this legislation? Seeing none, is there any debate? Yes, President Sargent.
I just want to commend Senator Sponzo for doing this. This has been an initiative since President Courchain, since my sophomore year, and it's something that that's very important to this campus. We tend to forget that, we're a UConn community and there's other campuses. We have some of our members of our executive committee who are part of the regional campuses, and they've done phenomenal jobs as part of this organization. So I think it's important to keep not only in touch, but have a strong relationship with regional campus, both now and going forward. So I fully support this legislation, even though I'm not able to vote on it. I commend Senator Sponzo for doing this.
Woo! Anybody else for debate? Are you saying that you support it or that you don't support it? Okay. Senator Puglisi, do you have anything? Gotcha. All right, seeing none, we move into a vote. All those in favor of enacting an act concerning the meeting of regional campuses, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Clearly passes. Okay, now, by unanimous consent, I'm going to recess for 8 minutes. And also, just so everyone knows, afterwards, I'm doing a roll call at the end of this Senate, so if you leave early, you're going to be marked absent for the day, and you wasted your time. So ordered.
Holy hell, Carl, what is that?
Actually, now that I'm just going with you.
Oh, the budget. Yes. I forgot that you have a role in this. Also, anybody who has very serious questions about the budget, or anybody who we had 30 minutes of talking about whether or not to even put the budget on the agenda and voted for it, it's generally pretty frustrating that after many of you voted against putting the budget on the agenda at all, that during the recess that I just called to review the budget so that you had time, didn't do it. So I'm just commenting on that because next Senate I'm going to start being a hard ass. I'm starting being a hard ass today because at the end of this Senate I'm taking roll call, and anybody who has not gotten an excused absence from me will be unexcused absence, or anybody who left. So just letting you know that, knock off that type of stuff, which isn't even talking to most of you, but many of you. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I hope you guys took another 8 minutes to review for the few 6 hours that we did give you to look at the budget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go line by line
with how much money is being given to each.
I didn't start presenting yet. Sorry. Tim, throw the number 16,000? 18. I understand.
Alright. So, I'm going to go line by line and go over how much is for each. And then there's this nifty little breakdown tab that I'm going to click on, and then we'll go over what's going to be the breakdowns. So, first we have student fee from the second semester, 16 times 45 is that, plus the rollover, which was about 1.5 million. Student services, 19,000. Student development, 38,300. Yes, I'm going to read out every line. Active affairs, 18,000. External affairs, 7,050. Funding board, 610,000. Reserve, 70,000. Programs, 177,000. Executive committee, 87,000. 17,000. Area council, 20,000. USG general, 135,000. District, 2,000. Total, 1.1. Difference, about 300,000. So, can you go to the breakdown tab, Eliza, please? And the first thing at the top is student service, no, student development. That's supposed to say student development, if you don't mind changing that. So, flowchart posters, Rainbow Center co-sponsorship, spring weekend, which is going to have the contractual services and things of that nature, committee dinners, which you guys all enjoy fully with student fees, spring event, which is, spring weekend events, which are all going to be contractual services, comes out to the $38,000 budget. External affairs, projector screen, which we're going to buy rather than renting every year because we've been doing this as an annual event. Then the licensing fee because it's illegal to screen a movie like that without having proper licensing. Then transportation to and from the Capitol if need be to testify. Refreshments is again catering of student fees for our own refreshments and our foodful pleasure. Miscellaneous is another $1,000 that we may or not need for our that external affairs may need for unforeseen circumstances. Funding board has $550,000 for semesterly requests, and then about $60,000 is thrown into the legislative requests. So that number can dabble in between a little bit. So like let's just say 500,000 was used for just regular requests, and 70,000 was used. If 540 was used for the disbursements, and then 70,000 was used on the legislative, that shouldn't be that big a deal to be able to rearrange those like that. Next one, for ag affairs, Eliza, if you don't mind striking these first two right here. These were a misprint on my, you can put 0 right there. 0, and then right below it, 0. There we go. So those two were mistakenly put it back in, I'm sorry. So academic affairs swag bags, which was the giveaways and programs for care packages, swag bag catering, so we're probably going to do a catering along with that, accessible to the student body. Outreach events, which is going to be something that the academic affairs chair needs to collaborate on a little bit more. He may do so. Committee dinner catering for the meetings. Next one, which is a little bit, if you want to go down now, a little bit more peculiar for some of you, if need be. It was peculiar a little bit for me as well. I wasn't sure about this. But within our bylaws itself, it says that programs itself must have its own line item, which is with its subsequent budgets. So we see that New York Times for this semester is 17,000 because we see it's about 35,000 for the entire academic year. So we split that in half. Guard dogs is again given that $100,000 because we want to have it up and running by March. This is going to include buying all new equipment, renting out a new space for them to operate out of, renting out all the vans every weekend. Any other refreshments and stuff that the members will need to stay going through the night. Training materials, whether we may need to hire people to actually train volunteers on risk and compliance, assessment, insurance, all these erroneous factors that can make a difference when you're dealing with individuals that may not be in the soundest mind. So we want to make sure that we're completely covered in that instance. Then the last program is the Student Organizational Center. 25,000 towards student workers' wages, 25,000 towards furniture refurbishing. As you know, we're contracting with the student union as well as outside contracts to rearrange the entire student organizational center as well as revamp and refurbish it so that it's a more friendly environment for student organizations to use to its best ability. Then you're going to see new computers and copiers. So this is again to make our organizational center that much more accessible and that much more beneficial to the student body that uses it. office supplies of 3,000. So this is everything again that student organizations use, whether it's getting funds, getting papers, getting things to table and chalk, and all these different aspects. And then lastly, reservable items for reserving rooms and things of that nature, where you may say, hey, we need AV, that's going to cost us $25 an hour, then you need to have money to be able to budget for that. So that's where that number comes. Next is USG General. So office requirements of 5,000. This is a little bit comparable, of course. The number between, can you go up a little bit? The number for office supplies and office requirements, they used to be bunched together within our USG General until we split them up. So that's why this 5,000 is a little bit more driven towards the USG office itself versus the SOC. And then the 130,000 is wages for Dawn, Daria, and Nikki, full-time staff. Last one's couple left exec. So COSGA U21 costs about $10,000 for travels and expenditures. That's going to be seeing as we're sending 10 delegates to represent UConn across various countries and nations. Committee buffers of 20,000 within exec if it comes to it that, hey, ACT Affairs needs a little bit more money, then we can budget it like that. Student Services needs a little bit more money, we can budget it like that without having to come to Senate and get these things done a little bit more quickly and more efficiently. End semester banquet of 7,000 is between what we've paid for the past 3 years. 3 years ago, at Avery Point, we paid about $9,000. 2 years ago at the Nathan Hale, we paid about $7,000. Last year at another location, I don't remember where it was, we paid around $4,000 to $5,000. So this $7,000 is to cover that amount. It's an average of the past 3 years for what we've had for our banquets. And then last is catering orientation / events. So these are things that senior staff will work on, as well as quick initiatives that USG may need to get done through exec. An example of that, of course, last year when we had sent the $10,000 bus down to Texas for the championship games is a prime example of where we use that money, or things that exec needs to get done. Things that exec needs to get done that might not have been something that technically or specifically falls under the prerogative of a specific committee is where that kind of money comes in. Another example, of course, was the open forums that we may hold, as well as the sexual harassment forum that we held. We had the presentation with Ellie last semester. So things of that nature that USG does as a whole versus things that committees specifically do is where that money is allocated. So if you want to go back to overall again, that is the overall again. So that is what we're looking at. Last time when we did this, the expenses were just as much as the revenue. So we're trying to cut into our reserves so that this is our $300,000 right now. By the end of fiscal year 17, we're projected to be at $150,000. If you want to know how we get to that number, of course I can give you the SFAC budgets that I and Mark and Claire had worked on last semester, as well as this semester that we presented on Tuesday that I was talking about earlier. That kind of explains why we need to cut into our budgets. Of course, we're cutting into it, but our priority as an organization when we're spending our money still remains for student organizations at $600,000. If you multiply that by 2, you're gonna get 1.2 million. We budgeted about 1.06 million for student organizations for Tier 2 funding for the entire year of fiscal year 14. So we're seeing comparable amounts. They're not going to use that much, but of course you still have to give them the opportunity to be able to use that much. So that is that. If you want to pull up the legislation itself and act concerning the spring 2015 budget, I like the last time. I think it's the last. If I did it, I sent it to Kevin, that representative. So that legislation itself just is the exact same wording, except now it's saying, whereas the undergraduate student government will adopt the proposed updated budget rather than the proposed preliminary budget that was presented 2 weeks ago. Is the only difference within the wording, but of course for transparency's sake, we'll get that up for you all. Just bear with me for 1 minute. This latte is delicious. Points are like on point.
Okay, whereas the undergraduate student government is charged with passing a budget each semester under the Constitution, therefore be it resolved, the undergraduate student government adopts an updated proposed budget as presented by Comptroller Rama. Therefore be it further resolved, the undergraduate student government has the ability to update or amend the budget at a later date if necessary.
So, that's what I have for you. Again, I got really fired up at the beginning. I apologize for that. We do have next Senate. If a lot of you have questions, we will be able to, I'll try my best to answer them to my best ability. We have the committee chairs here that can answer to their best ability. And then if you're still uncomfortable with passing it, I completely understand. You can table it to the next Senate if need be, and then reach out to me or reach out to your committee chairs to work on the numbers if you're not comfortable with them. So, yeah.
Is there a motion to enact this legislation? Motion by Dustin, second by...
She had it back.
I didn't know. All right, are there any questions for Comptroller Ron? Start with Stephen. And here's Kevin.
Followed by Caruso Bravo.
Does student services have any money budgeted?
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely. If you mind going back to it for a second. That was my fault. So, student services has $19,000 allocated towards it. I had it right there. It was at the bottom of the list. That's why I forgot to say it. So, $18,000 is towards Student Appreciation Day. That number has increased from what it was last year because it was $15,000 last year, and we saw things went out really quickly. The only reason we had extra amounts left was my fault last year because I put boxes in room 215 that I didn't know were there, so we were left with another like 3 boxes, which was completely and all my fault, which is why we didn't have that. But that shouldn't happen again, which is why we need that money for them. And then the other 1,000 is for miscellaneous things like, of course, committee dinners and anything else that they may need. Thank you.
Next, Senator Caruso. Oh, you're a very vigorous yawner. Senator Brogolo, do you yield? Are there any other questions regarding this budget? Senator Cognato.
So you skipped over part of the SOC breakdown.
No,
it's okay. I was wondering if it was just because we went over the program directions or whatever, but I was hoping we could have a little bit more information on the $25,000 for the furniture and the $3,000 for the office supplies and the $6,000 for computers.
Sure. I'm going to yield the floor to the Executive Director of Programs, Tom Matthews. Yeah, you come up here, bro. Take the podium. Show us. Sorry.
Great. So I explained office supplies previously, the way that office supplies was paid for the SOC was out of USG General, which is not the proper way to do it since the SOC is a program. So that's why that's up there, as opposed to having it come out of USG General or something of that nature. Furniture is to basically revamp the SOC for the furniture that's in there, which is a bit worn down and a bit not exactly welcoming or provides a good environment for student organizations who want to come in and work on projects, or students who want to come in and have an informal place to meet. But we also do have the conference room for organizations, which is bookable by them by going onto our website and filling out the form. Anything specific about that, I guess?
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we move into debate. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for debate? Go ahead.
Just again, reiterating what I said before, I'm going to try and not say much for this if you guys do have anything. I do want to again apologize. I was out of line with what I was saying, but I really just wanted to make sure we went over it today rather than not, which is why I did push for it. And then again, rationally thinking about it a little bit more, since we have the opportunity to table it. If you do feel necessary to do so, I completely respect that decision.
Next. Next in debate is Kevin Alvarez. Speaker Alvarez.
Yeah, I'm stepping down. Also, I was on the list, don't worry. I'm stepping down again. I know. And here's why.
Because, and again, I'm only going to step down when I think that I want to make sure that the Senate is as informed and thinking things through as possible. The problem I have with this, actually, and I'm going to make a motion to amend it. And it has nothing to do with Parth or with anything. But I have a big kind of problem with the idea that SOC is all under programs now. And I voiced this before because by definition, what a program is has nothing to do with a room that people can reserve. That's not what a program is. By dictionary definition, I give you the approval to all look up the word program. Second, a program, per our bylaws, has to be created by request of the undergraduate student government through the executive committee. The executive committee never actually made the decision to make it a program. The executive committee has never designed it as a program. It was just kind of told to us by the chief of staff, who frankly does not actually have the ability to tell us things. So what I would say is I believe that the SOC budget needs to be moved for at least now under the executive committee's budget. So that the executive committee, who are elected and confirmed by the Senate, have oversight over actually deciding where this money goes and how it's spent. It's a level of bureaucracy that I think is necessary when dealing with student money, so that people who are not appointed or elected are, and I mean by appointed I mean confirmed by the Senate or elected, should not be able to spend student money. That's why ex officio senators aren't able to vote, because they're not elected. That's why every person here is confirmed. And so I think we need to make sure that we're actually following the bylaws. I think describing it as a program prematurely before the executive committee has actually decided that is a problem. So I motion to amend the budget and move all of the items marked SOC from under programs into the category of the executive committee's budget.
He has motioned to amend. Is there a second? Ben Cagnata. Are there any questions for Speaker Alvarez? Yes, Senator.
Yeah, even if it's moved into the exec budget, it's still part of the entire legislation, which the last resolution, I believe, said that it would be subject to adjustment if we saw necessary. What level of scrutiny is there, or what kind of conversations or work is there going to be on that budget once it's moved to exec? How is that going to be handled?
Well, the way it works, and it works this way now, that's how the process works, it's the senior staff has the prerogative, or has essentially oversees how it all functions. They make recommendations to the executive committee, they find budgets, line items, all of that. They essentially handle it all, but it goes through the executive committee for a greater level of review and a greater level of essentially oversight that is especially because it's made up of people that are responsible for, because they're all confirmed or elected, for actually handling student fees properly. That's how it works. It works that way now, and it isn't, I've never seen a problem with it. It's a very quick thing. It goes through the report of the chief of staff or the programs director, and I think it's, for now, especially considering I do not consider it a program because it simply isn't, I think it needs to be moved into the executive committee's budget.
Are there any other questions for Speaker Alvarez? Oh, sorry, John Myers. Senator Myers. Yeah, just a quick question. I mean, did you discuss this at all with Programs Director Matthews at all? I mean, just because from a senator's perspective, it seems like you're kind of being a little like, on the unilateral side. That's not necessarily how I feel, but I just feel like the perception could be in the room.
Well, from the unilateral side on my part, the reason that I'm saying this now is because I brought it up briefly in exec, and I was generally against unilateral decisions being made, particularly when they were people who hadn't been elected to make decisions. So I'm trying to actually combat unilateralism. I have talked to, or I expressed concerns to Programs Director Matthews today in exec, as well as I've expressed it in the past in exec. Many members of exec might not remember it was a short exchange, but I said that that does not fit the definition of a program, and no one ever really has challenged the fact that you can't just start calling something a program without anybody actually deciding that it is, or reading the definition of the word program.
Are there any other questions? Senator Cagnata?
Seeing as whether or not the SOC is a program, whatever it is, combined, it's going to be about $60,000 for the revamp or whatever's going to happen in there. Does exec plan to, through a caucus or through surveys or anything like that, involve senators in the decision on, how much we're spending, how much we're actually going to get to the purchasing, spending on furniture and computers and things like that? Or is that, even if it's moving from the sole decision of a program director, is it going to move to the closed decision behind exec, or will there be more room for senators to have input on that.
I say senators, and especially because it's my job to make sure that senators will always have input in this, especially the reason that I'm as adamant about it going to exec is because exec is also an open meeting. It's a meeting where I am pretty staunch. I think anybody would say that in exec. I'm pretty staunch on making sure that the Senate's input and thought process is actually put into the decisions that we make, and any senator will then be able to go to exec. But also, we can make it into a much more open process by discussing it in caucus, by discussing it in various other ways. And I think part of it is also bringing it up now, because the Senate does have the prerogative, just so you're all informed, to allocate this money, which would essentially be, I don't really know the process behind it. You still have the prerogative to do it. It's just very strange because there's no actual oversight of how the money would be spent based on the fact that no program actually exists. So the Senate will always be included in these decisions. Honestly, just moving it from there to a different part of the budget is not that huge of a thing, and I don't want it to take forever because I know that you've all been here for a very long time. But I think for the sake of the Senate, for the organization, and just the way that students' money is spent as a whole, I think it's a wise decision to move it.
Next is Senator Priscilla.
I have a stupid question, but before we vote, can you just quickly recap how this affects the budget pragmatically?
Pragmatically, it doesn't. It'll move it in the budget. It will put more oversight over the money. However, it won't actually change the fact that the money will be able to be spent. It doesn't change the series of time that it will be spent. It just introduces another level of oversight for the executive committee and for the organization as a whole. It won't remove it from the budget or do anything like that.
Any other questions? Seeing no more questions, we'll move into debate. First on the list is President Mark Sargent. You want to be recognized for debate? Yeah.
How's everybody doing? So, this conversation was brought up a couple times. We've had a lengthy discussion. I've talked about this plenty of times with the programs director, and this actually is something that the executive has created as a program. In that sense, there's a board in our bylaws as it stipulates right now, and I'll look forward to our Chief Justice for the actual language of bylaws and the programs in our constitutional bylaws.
Yeah, and it's bylaw 20 under programs, and under definitions, it says that a program shall be defined as a set of services created under the discretion of undergraduate student government for undergraduate students at the University of Connecticut that should be beneficial to the University of Connecticut community. Programs are supervised by the undergraduate student government. Programs can be established with a request from the undergraduate student government through the executive committee, and programs function as an outreach service of undergraduate students.
So the program has been brought through the executive committee, so we are following bylaw standards as it stands right now. And as far as the breakdown goes for the board of directors, I'd like to yield the floor to the programs director, the actual representatives who will be on board this board of governors.
Next is sorry.
Can you? I'm yielding to you, so you can just do it all.
Point of information, was it ever voted on in exec?
In the bylaws, it does not stipulate that.
It stipulates that it goes through the executive committee, was it ever voted upon in exec?
It doesn't say vote.
It doesn't say the word vote, but it says to approve the executive committee, has the executive committee decided it? In any way.
Okay, so at the moment, it's questions asked and answered. Sorry, Kevin, but you can bring that up in debate. Anyway, Matthews, you have the floor.
So in the bylaws, it stipulates that we have a board of directors for the program. For the SOC, well, for all programs, we must have an assistant director and financial director. As executive director, I chair that board. As assistant director, we have Jess Santos, who is the supervisor for the student workers of the SOC. And for financial director, we have Romana, who is the vice president of USG. I think when I talked to Chief of Staff Clark about what we should do about this, because basically, as I've seen it, is that by definition, the SOC has been a program, but has not been operating under the guise of programs because of the inconsistency prior to my taking the position, or whoever was previously in the position.
And I'll yield the floor back to Liz and the speakers.
All right. So next in debate is Chairperson Hines.
I just want you all to take note of this moment because this is probably the first and only time I'm ever going to agree with Kevin. But, like, for real though. So, my feelings about this is that it should not be taken away from senior staff, but it should be jointly decided by senior staff. What is happening right now, and I know someone asked about unilateral decisions, who was that? John. So what's happening right now, in my opinion, is that a lot of these things that are on this list, like the furniture and office supplies and things, have come up in exec, but in exec we are told by senior staff that it's not really our decision, they're going to do whatever they want anyway. That has been said in exec. So I don't mind having this go through senior staff, but I think because the SOC does affect all of us in this room and a lot of other people, it would be better if it did go through exec and senior staff. So I think maybe if like the vice president and Tom were like jointly in charge of this money, maybe that could help. But like Kevin said, Kevin just did bring up this point, a lot of these things were brought up in exec just as like, this is what's happening. We never actually had discussions about whether or not it should happen that way. So, I don't know, I just agree with Kevin, and there should just be more oversight because a lot of people use the SOC. So.
Next for debate, Senator Burr.
Okay. Frankly, I think people who are debating for Kevin's side, frankly, haven't read the bylaws, or at least this section of the bylaws. In terms of oversight, Kaylee, section, it's on the, all right, under financial process says the comptroller and the supervisor must be informed of the expenditures above $150 prior to the use of funds. It says this is going to be overseen by the president. So there's a lot of oversight on this, and I don't think we should be, when the bylaws strictly say that this is how programs are run, and the SOC fits under this definition, we should be like willy-nilly deciding like, oh, this program needs supervision by exec over another when they fit under the same category. So the bylaws stipulate how this should be done because it's defined under a program. Chief Justice Bluen read it out loud, it fits under that definition, so why don't we just follow the bylaws the way it says it is? Because that's what this Senate approved, are these bylaws, so let's just do it the way the bylaws say.
Chairperson Convoy.
So I agree with Kevin and Kaylee under this. I read the bylaws and I understand the interpretation, but I'm kind of going to go off that quote that Kaylee said, which was said in a meeting when exec didn't agree with what was going on and we thought that it should have more say to the senators and more say through exec, and we were literally told it's not your decision, it's our job. To me, I understand the bylaws concern, but I also think that we've had how many years of senates not understanding the SOC under those terms, and I also think when you say it's going through exec board, I know Kevin even said it, like, you have Kevin, but you also have you have committee chairs who are concerned about committee space and what that's going to look like in the future, and you do have the speaker and other people who represent you. So even if we disagree about how many caucuses you go to or not, like, I think that there's clearly disagreement between senior staff on some points and exec on some points, and this is kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we voted for this, even if it's in the bylaws, if Senate said they were more comfortable with it going through exec, is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, so that's something to think about. So even if it does fit under that, if you are still more comfortable with it going through exec, that can still be done.
Next is Speaker Alvarez.
I like to borrow other people's binders. Let's just, hold on, let me see. Programs function as an outreach service of the undergraduate student government. New York Times reaches out to students by informing them. It goes out as a program. It's a program that we run where people can read and be educated and all that. Guard Dogs is a program. If you reach out to the student body, you actually do things. A program is not a room in a building that essentially unelected people are going to decide this is now ours and we decided. And we don't care that the executive committee has actual authority over this. We're just going to call it a program anyway, despite the fact that a program, I'm going to look it up on my phone because I had it right here. The actual definition of the word program is as follows. A planned series of future events, items, or performances. If you think a room falls into that definition, feel free to vote down my motion. However, if you actually think that when it says that programs can be established with a request from the undergraduate student government through the executive committee, that's not one member of the committee. The majority of the committee has to make a decision. That's how this works. And yes?
Is the SOC more than a room?
Uh,
Provide services, such as copying?
It provides services. It has a copier in it. So any office space.
I was going to say, as a point of order, I'm not quite sure. I think that is a question that needs to be yielded to, I'd say, to President Sutter.
I think.
Or Vice President Romano.
So, just a historical point, that room was originally given to USG to manage for student groups from student activities. That space was given to us to manage for the purpose for student activities, for student organizations to use. It has meeting space, computers, copiers, storage space, different papers, whatever, markers, whatever else. And also just another point, our advisor has actually worked for the student activities and said that this, like the SOC technically, like perfectly fits under the definition of a program. Said if anything in USG is a program, like that is it. So just
And in response to that point, it is our advisor, who we have disagreed with on many different occasions, also who did not read the definition of events, items, or performances as a program. Also, the fact that it goes through the executive committee, which is the more important point, it was never created. It was never decided as a program. So even if the executive committee does decide to make this a program and give that input where they decide this, that is fine. But it hasn't even been decided, and the idea that it coincides with our bylaws is ludicrous if you don't read Part 6, where it says it goes through the executive committee. And the executive committee is made up of people, as defined in our bylaws and constitution. So just ignoring that clause where it has to go through something, and it is a process, is just ludicrous to me. And it also wouldn't affect us being able to spend this money. It wouldn't affect much of anything other than it would give more oversight to the Senate and the executive committee to actually make these decisions so unelected people were not unilaterally.
Yes, point of information.
why is this like an issue now? Like why has this come up as a
Because in exec, we were told it's not your decision, and so.
No, I'm just wondering, do you think like or something like
It was never talked about in exec.
Okay, all right, hold on. I can do this. I know. All right, Danielle, point of order, directed at me. I'm gonna yield to Sergeant, President Sergeant. My bad.
As an aside, this has been an agenda item that's come up recently, obviously with the transition from former President Price to President Sargent. There's been information that has come over. We've had 3 executive committee meetings. This is the first time this is coming up in exec, and it's the first agenda item on discussion for next executive session.
So I would say, why don't we wait until next exec actually considers this? That is all I'm saying. Yes? Huh? Yeah, no, it would move it under the executive committee. However, because the program hasn't been created yet. So if the executive committee then decides, hey, we're going to allocate this money for programs, then the Senate can either, by legislation, which we have a Senate, and we change the budget at any time that they choose, which that is your prerogative and it keeps it in your hands as well. But also the executive committee can then decide we're going to spend this money like this. So it's essentially, it creates some level of oversight for a lot of money that I think is reasonable. And that's it. And also the fact that 2 other members of the executive committee who were also told this isn't your decision, even though we were put in our jobs to actually help make decisions and protect student funds, I think it's just
Point of information is I have absolutely no idea. I'm going to yield again to Mark's President Sargent because it has.
My turn?
Yes, next in debate is Comptroller Ron.
Wait, what? Oh, I thought I called. What? No. I did not step down.
All right, I'm sorry.
I'm going to yield to, just for some judicial review, I will yield to the interpretation of the Chief Justice on this one, for the executive.
Well, the thing is, I think what you guys are kind of arguing over or have tension with is whether it has to go through the executive committee or not. And I guess the wording that we're looking at right now is Kevin, I have to agree with Kevin in saying that it has to be voted on by exact in order for it to be legitimate. Just because if you look through the rest of the bylaws, through, it's going to sound really nitpicky, but through is used through the Senate or through the appeals board, and that is referring to actually getting voted on and passed. So therefore, I agree with Kevin. Our interpretation is that through the executive committee, it means getting voted. So just bringing it and discussing it is not legitimate grounds for going through the executive committee. That's just our interpretation.
Okay, so the executive program director is under the chief of staff, and the chief of staff is under Mark, president. Don't if they do anything, doesn't Mark have to like approve it anyways?
I will yield to President Sargent.
The short answer to that is yes.
You can straighten the speakers list. I was wondering if you might be able to yield to someone who could answer, should this pass, would it have any effect on other student groups that use this space currently? I know it's an invaluable space for many student groups, for students looking for a place to hang out between classes. I know Husky-Thon relies on it a lot. Should the control of the space change, are there anticipated changes to the usage of the space?
I'm going to yield to Vice President.
The main concern is, especially something like through the furniture or something like that, is just like time and efficiency for efficiency's sake. Like things would take a lot longer to get done.
So the usage of the space will not change. It'll still be available to student groups.
No, the SSC, like that's what it is. It's like for student groups, like whatever it's under. That's what it is.
All right, so next on the list for debate is Comptroller Ron.
Okay. Try and take up a little bit of time to kind of say mainly that I can't vote or I can't do anything, but what I would say to everyone is that we strike down this motion and then afterwards be able to table this to next week. What I say this for now is that if we do that, then that means this, between now and the next special Senate that we have, there will be a vote within the executive committee on whether or not to, as our judiciary just said, to be able to review whether or not we want to make this a legitimate program with the vote gone through and everything to make sure that, that's happened procedure-wise. The other thing I would say is that also allows any other member of this organization that has any issues with the budget as a whole to be able to personally speak with myself and make any changes that they do feel as most necessary. So that way we're killing two birds with one stone. Anyone that has a problem with how the budget overall has been done can speak to me about it. Anyone that has an issue with how the programs itself is being allocated can talk to myself or Tom or Kevin or even Mark about what needs to be done for that. And then when we reconvene for that special Senate next week, we can vote on it much quicker. We can even debate a little bit or talk about it a little bit in caucus. I know I personally wouldn't want to do that. We can put it in debate and talk about it. We can put it in the special Senate and talk about it. But we can talk a little bit about it in debate itself. But what I do want to stress right now is that rather than debating on one little thing that we can easily get done, one little thing that we clearly know that what we want to do is vote on it within our executive committee first before we bring it up into our budget again, is I want to be able to, no one has questions already. Yeah, so sorry, a little bit, going back a little bit. Yeah, so what I do think we should do is still strike this down and then motion a late table so that we don't have to keep going in circles around who thinks he's right and who thinks she's right. Rather, we can just get back together next week and be able to do it properly.
Yes, we did vote to
Well, as I understand it, if we vote to incorporate it into the act or into the budget, then the budget that we bring to Senate next meeting will have that provision in it, if you follow. So it'll just be incorporated into the act, which we'll vote on again, which I'm sure we'll talk about if we do table it in talks.
Yeah, so then the last thing I would say for that, oh no, I can't say anything about that, actually, because if it's late tabled, I can't represent or anything. So yeah, if this does get passed, then we'll just move SOC down to the exec chunk, and then you guys can vote on it now, or we can vote on it later. Or if this fails, then I would say we table it so that exec can vote on whether we want to make a program or not, and then vote on it at Senate next week. So either way, I would say that there's a good way to do this, which would be to keep debating, or there's a best way to do this, which would be to vote on this now, and then vote on vote on this now, and then either vote on the legislation and have it passed now, or just lay table. Because you don't want to vote on this legislation once now, bring it back next Senate, and vote on another legislation again, because that's just going to keep getting us tired and make us go in circles and circles. So, cool. I can't motion.
All right. Well,
you can actually, the point of personal something, you can also table it right now, like the whole thing right now, and it would still, when we return, it would still be this point if we're going to move it or not.
That's a smart idea.
Counter question: can Parth yield to someone who can then move?
Okay, I will yield to. What do you know? Do you have a point?
No, to the right.
Yeah.
Yes. That is what it does say.
I do it over and over. That's the issue.
So, to keep things kind of streamlined, you were about to yield to somebody.
I'm going to yield to Dan Bird.
And Dan Bird.
I motion to lay table to be higher.
All right,
Until next.
all right, so there is a motion to lay table to an act concerning the spring 2015 budget of the undergraduate student government.
To the special Senate next week, not the next normal
Yes,
schedule.
to the special Senate next. To the special Senate next week.
Yeah, the next time the Senate convenes.
The next time the Senate convenes, which is a lot later. All in favor of laying table? Oh, is there a second? My bad. Costello? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Abstentions? All right, so that motion clearly passes. It is now tabled, and here comes Kevin.
and now next we're moving into. I have no idea what I'm doing. Next, we move into discussion. Is there anybody who would like to be recognized for discussion? Senator Lavoie.
Because you talked about taking the meeting, does that change any of the votes that occurred tonight because if you're not going to
No, it'll be counted towards my list of unexcused absences. So it won't. I can't take away your vote. That'll never happen. I have no power to do that, and that would be horrible. But so yeah, your vote will still count if you're. Well, it doesn't apply to any of you. The vote will still count, but you will be. It'll be counted as an absence against you.
I just never talked about if you showed up at 10 seconds, don't have votes.
Yeah. All right. Is there anybody else who would like to be recognized for discussion? For announcements, I know Parliamentarian Conrad, then Chairperson Hines, then Colin Ing, then Chairperson Lynn. Yep.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about guard dogs. So I don't ask for help like ever, but I need everyone's help if you can. So I was told last Friday that I need to have the entire guard dogs office emptied in East by this Friday, or else we lose everything in there. And we can't lose
exec is doing an e-vote tonight to get the funds approved to get a U-Haul and storage space off campus, so I can put the stuff somewhere until, it'll be only a month until I have a new office to put it all in. But I don't have a car on campus to go get this U-Haul once I buy it tonight. I don't know. It's got me. But I'm gonna need people around like 4 o'clock to help me in East and stuff. Friday around 3:34. So I know there's some meetings going on, so if you can't, that's fine. But if you can, just shoot me a text or Facebook or whatever. I'm on everything all the time. Question?
Sure.
Is there like one time or is it only like how long is
The whole day. So I'm picking it up at 3 and then I'm keeping it till I get everything where it needs to go. Awesome. So just come when you can. I'm gonna be east, but if I just needed help with like getting the U-Haul, and then I can't move couches by myself as much as I'd like to. You know, I do go to the gym a lot, but you know, I'm not that strong yet. But if anyone, just because Gardex does have a giant budget that we did talk about tonight, so if you have any questions about that, it's a large chunk of numbers that I didn't have a breakdown for yet. Feel free to talk to me, or if you're kind of wondering what I've been doing for the past like entire year, don't hesitate to like talk to me about it, because I can tell you absolutely everything you want to know.
Next, Chairperson Himes.
Sorry, I should have been training no matter what position you are seeking. There's going to be 5 or 6 of them, so hopefully it'll work with your schedule. If it doesn't work with your schedule, you can meet with me separately. But basically it's going to go over etiquette for campaigns, where you can post, what you can do, where you can talk, everything like that. Again, it was in the election packet. It is mandatory, so if you sign an election packet, you have to be there. I'll be sending out an email by Friday that lists the times and dates. And all of them will probably be held in the conference room. It's reserved for that. So just keep that in mind for next week.
Next, Senator Ng.
So this is my email. I'm going to ask for letters of intent for my brand new committee. Ask anyone that's been on a committee chaired by me before. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. And we get
He is actually really good at it.
And I've already redone the bylaws, which actually the bylaws that they were looking off of were actually outdated, but we didn't touch programs, so it didn't really matter, but that was slightly an issue. So if you're interested, and I'm also looking for people who are not involved in USG to be on this committee as well. So if you guys know anyone that hates us, send them my way, please. I would appreciate it a lot, or someone who has a lot of criticisms. And then if you yourself are interested as well, please send me a letter of intent, just detailing why you want to join it. So, yeah. My name is like 7 letters, so, and there's no vowels in the last name.
Next, Chairperson Ng. Okay, Swim. Sorry. He was talking about chair.
Quickly, B13, I need your nominations for Educator of the Year award from the USG. I've got 3 nominations. I want at least, I like choices. So like 10, 15, that. And also, again, March 10th, Monday, the outreach event thing on my budget, that's that. There will be food there, it's going to go there around lunchtime. Meet your constituents in an academic context. Talk about academic stuff. That's all. What I say. What? I believe that's a Monday. 13th of March.
So if I want to nominate somebody, do they have to be a tenured professor, or can they just be anyone?
Any instructor.
Really?
Professor. So just email me at academicaffairs@usg.econ.edu, name of the instructor, department, and why.
Okay.
Briefly, but enough detail so I can make a good decision, so we can make a good decision. Any other questions? No? Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Next, President Surgeon.
Just members of exec, real quick, make sure to respond to that email that I just sent out because we need to have that happen for a while. And again, thank you, Aya, for coming and being a member of this organization. Hopefully we didn't scare away too much. And if anyone knows any individuals from any other cultural centers who are interested in this position, please have them contact me because we're looking for 4 more positions from cultural centers.
Vice President Romano.
Constant people, brief meeting, and in the conference room, it'll be like 5-10 minutes. Brett is coming to it, so.
Are there any other people who would like to be recognized for announcements? Seeing none, I already took down the attendance, so adjourned at 10:42.
Right outside!